All right, so Griffin, I'm going to need you to do me a favor because when we tested this, I could hear the music just fine. But as soon as we went live, I heard no music. So I don't know how this is going to work for other
Gotcha.
things that we do today. And I'm going to need you to maybe go listen and see. Here's the good news. I hear myself in the background because I went to listen to see if I was hearing it, and I didn't hear it, so that doesn't seem promising about our ability to play commercials today.
Got
Hi.
it.
Hi, it's Glenn Clark Radio. It is technically a Monday edition of the program. Yeah, look, I don't want to get political on everyone. I have a lot of feelings about snow. Snow sucks. Any adult who likes snow, seek help. I mean, like you're just dealing with. I wish I was still a child, and I wish I could still like we have things to do. We have lives to live. Snow is bad, and as I've said a million times before, when it snows, people die. So like stop with the nonsense where you're like, oh, I love snow. Snow's so, get the entire F out of here. What you like is the idea of figuring out a way to get out of your responsibilities. And like, don't get me wrong, you're not alone. Lots of people like the idea of having a way of getting out of their responsibilities. It is borderline overwhelming how many people like the idea of being able to get out of their responsibilities. So, um, the deal is, Pressbox's office is closed today. So we're here from home doing whatever version of a show that we can do for you. This is untested. This is not something that I hope that we'll ever do again. I want to do. I know somebody would laugh when I say I want to do as good of a show as we're capable of doing. Yeah, but we're going to do everything in our power to deliver a show of some sort and in some form or fashion today. We have some guests that are scheduled to join us. Adalius Thomas, Ravens legend. He was back in town on Saturday, now working out at Colorado with Coach Prime. He was back in town. It was good to see him, and we're going to get his thoughts on what he saw from the Ravens and his confidence going into the playoffs, as well as perhaps a few Ravens Steelers memories as we do get into a Ravens Steelers playoff week. Dr. David Chow, of course, former Chargers team doctor, and now with SIC score, among other places. We will get the analysis that we can about Zay Flowers going into the postseason. John Harbaugh is scheduled to chat with reporters again this morning at 11 a.m. So we will see if there is a further update or if it's just day to day when it comes to Zay Flowers. Ian Rappaport, I believe, put out a report yesterday about Zay Flowers that kind of suggested that perhaps this week is not likely. The good news is it's not season ending. It's not, obviously significant, but even a game, even one game without the Zay Flowers, who's been phenomenal for the Ravens, is not great. And if it were to stretch beyond that, that would be even more problematic. So we'll see what Dr. David Chow has to say about Zay Flowers. And it's Monday, so we'll catch up with Jeremy Conn. Plus, we'll go over Pats on the Ass from the regular season finale, and we'll recap the week in picks. All of that coming up here on a Monday edition of the program. Griffin, the CIAA tournament is coming back.
That is correct, and that means I had it for you, Glenn, because I can't
Just,
wait to tell
just
everyone about the CIAA tournament because Baltimore is welcoming the excitement of the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament at the CFG Bank Arena from February 25th through March 1st. So you can catch some good basketball. Get your tickets now at Ticketmaster.com for the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournaments later this year.
yeah, yeah. By the way, Ian Rappaport said it was likely a sprain, and we're still waiting on word from the MRI, which apparently was supposed to take place yesterday. So you presume that John Harbaugh will update everyone as much as he's willing to, knowing John Harbaugh, about that coming up a little bit later on today. I'm writing a column today for PressBoxOnline.com. I can't add to any of what we all know is now at stake. I can't give I don't know what the conversation is like today in Houston. My guess is it's a deflating feeling trying to get up for the playoffs. We all know what's going on here. We all can take the temperature in Baltimore. We've been through the MVP debate. We've been through. Now it's as simple as this. Either the Ravens are finally going to end this streak of postseason futility, or they're not. That's it. That's it. We're excited. It's Ravens Steelers in the playoffs. Uh, yeah, the Steelers have they certainly have their problems and their own things they have to deal with. And I'm not, there are a lot of people and a lot of Ravens fans that I believe are genuinely more concerned about the fact that it's the Steelers than if it would be any other team in the NFL. And I don't count myself among them. If it was in Pittsburgh, I might. I mean, the Ravens have a Pittsburgh problem. They don't have a Steelers problem. That's overstated. In Baltimore, they just have an anomaly. It's that simple. Lamar Jackson is undefeated against the Steelers in home games where fans were in the stands. That's the reality. They have an anomaly with the Steelers where they just haven't played the Steelers at home with Lamar Jackson on the field and fans in the stands. There's no, hey, the Steelers have the Ravens number in Baltimore. They don't. They might have Tyler Huntley's number or Anthony Brown's number or whoever it was that was starting some of these games. They don't have the Ravens number in Baltimore, period. There is a Pittsburgh thing, undoubtedly. Like, if the game were in Pittsburgh, I would be worried about voodoo and black magic and all of that sort of stuff. But in Baltimore, I don't feel that. The Ravens are better than the Steelers. They were better than the Steelers all season long. It took a little bit longer to get to the ultimate result than we expected, but the Ravens should have finished at least 2 games ahead of the Steelers in the AFC North, and they did. It's just that it was a wonky trip there that involved the Steelers losing their last 4 games and the Ravens winning their last 4. I'm not worried about the Pittsburgh Steelers coming to Baltimore. I'm not worried about the history between the Ravens and Steelers. They've never played a playoff game against each other in Baltimore. Like, all of that stuff to me goes right out the window. There is no there there. That doesn't guarantee that they're going to win the game. Obviously, that's not the way these things work. But I'm not worried about any of that stuff the way that some of you guys are. I am worried about all the other stuff. I am worried about the offensive line getting their butts kicked and TJ Watt being healthier than he was when he came to Baltimore 2 weeks ago. I am worried about whether or not Brandon Stevens is going to be one-on-one with George Pickens a couple of times. And for as bad as George Pickens looked on Saturday night, we still know he has a huge catch radius, and I'm worried about that. I'm worried about football things. And I'm also still a little bit worried about the Ravens' playoff history. Like, I don't know how that affects them. And there is no answer. We'll ask people about that as they join us this week, but there's no answer for how it's going to affect the Ravens that's there. I don't know that it's the reason why they weren't like themselves in the AFC Championship game. We all seem to think that it was, that stuff weighed on them, but I don't know. I don't know how much that comes up. If they get to Saturday night and all of a sudden they look up and it's 17-16 Steelers in the third quarter, do they panic? I don't know. But I can't say no. I can't say, oh, they'll be comfortable because they've been in that position a million times before. Look, they haven't. So, yeah, that stuff worries. I don't know if worries is the right word, but that stuff is there, all of it. And they have to deal with it. Like, they have to answer for specifically Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh, because clearly, like, Derrick Henry hasn't been a part of it, but he inherits it. They all inherit it. They have to prove that it's going to be different. and that's the weight that they carry. I absolutely think that this team has as good a chance as anyone, if not better, of beating the Kansas City Chiefs. We got to reach out to our buddy Jeff Chadia because he wrote a thing for NFL.com where he had like the Bills as the favorite to win the Super Bowl, and I love Jeff. That's as utter nonsense as it gets. Pretending like the Ravens have a playoff problem that the Bills don't, and I love him, and I tell him that I love him, and I'm going to tell him that's utterly insane. The Bills have no leg up on the Ravens, none, zero, at all. I get it. You could say, hey, they were the team that beat the Chiefs this year. Sure did in Buffalo. The game would not be in Buffalo if it was played again. There is absolutely no world in which any team is above the Chiefs. The Chiefs are, bar none, the favorite to win the Super Bowl. Absolutely 1000% by any it saying anything else is would make me question your I don't want to say legitimacy because then it's going to sound like I'm taking shots, particularly at Jeff Chadia. There is no way to argue that anyone besides the Chiefs is the favorite to win the Super Bowl. You cannot make that argument. Not with a straight face. They're the Kansas City Chiefs. They have Patrick Mahomes. They have Andy Reid. They're better than they were a year ago when they won the Super Bowl. They are not going to blink in the biggest moments. You're going to have to beat them in the biggest moments. And it goes through them. Nonsense. It's nonsense to think that anyone else besides the Chiefs is the favorite. They are, period. Point blank. They're the favorites. Outside of the Chiefs, I think the Ravens have as good a chance as anyone. I, you know, to say they have a better chance than the Bills, I mean, we do have to respect the fact that the game is in Buffalo. That doesn't mean I don't think the Ravens can go beat the Bills in Buffalo. I think they absolutely can. But we would have to respect that. The odds makers almost certainly would have the Bills favor. I don't know, maybe somebody would tell me otherwise. The odds makers love the Ravens. Like they really do. They love like the metrics that suggest
Would
that the Ravens are a historically great team. Go
who
ahead.
would the Chiefs be? Like so, if the AFC Championship's in Kansas City, who would the Chiefs be favorites against both the Bills and the Ravens?
They would have to be. I mean, how could they possibly not be? It'd be insane.
I guess,
Honest to God, it
yeah.
would be
Depending, I
insane.
guess, depending on how the next 2 weeks go, I guess that would be the only like
I mean,
if the Bills or the Ravens both win their next two games by what 40 maybe.
I don't think it matters. I mean, I think it would have to matter if the Chiefs suffer significant injuries. Like the Chiefs at home in the AFC Championship game have to be favored. I'm trying to see what we can
You want
pull.
the AFC odds? Is that
Yeah, you
or
can share them with me if you want.
Chiefs are of course the plus 155 as the favorites.
Yeah, but so that's
Maybe I
interesting
can
that
do this.
the Bills and Ravens are pretty close at 240 and 290, which does suggest that that's going to be close because you do have to bake in the fact that the Chiefs don't have to play this weekend. So some of those odds are baking in the fact that the Chiefs don't have to play. That suggests that matchups against the Bills or
Hmm.
the Ravens would be extraordinarily close. Um, but probably still would be a slight edge. Like that smells like they would be like a point or so favorites over those two teams. That's what it smells like. I don't know that, but that's what it smells like. Um, Look, man, I am I, I I'm quiet. I asked this question. If you missed this for Project Game Day, shame on you. Project Game Day will be back, a playoff edition of the show. We'll be with you Saturday, late night show immediately following Ravens Steelers. Come join us, pressboxonline.com/game day. Myself, Rita, Femi, the whole crew. We will be in action. And if you missed this past week's show, you can go check it out. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline. It's all brought to you by Easy Pass, 1-800-GAMBLER, and the CIAA tournament. But I asked the question, like, how confident are you? And I think that based on what the Ravens are, based on all of the data that we have, that they, came a toenail away from beating every other AFC playoff team this season, that they're the first team in NFL history with 4,000 passing yards and 3,000 rushing yards, that since they made the moves they made in the secondary, they've had the number one scoring and total defense in the NFL. There's every right to be confident. I, this is a really good football team, an unquestionably good football team. But all the other stuff still exists. And every game that you watch in the playoffs, it's going to be in the back of your mind. Is this going to be the one where they get away from themselves? Is this going to be the one where they forget about their identity? Is this going to be the one where they look panicked? They look like they're not ready for the moment. All of that stuff is going to seep into your brain as a Ravens fan. That's the reality. Will it seep into their brains? I hope not. I hope not. I don't, there's no way. It's funny when we talked about this with the Steelers stuff. There is no way to prepare for that. There's no way to spend the week. Here's how we're not going to think about that. Because that's all you're doing is you're bringing attention to it when you say, let's not think about it. There's no way. All you can do is just game plan and go try to beat your opponent. This is a really, really, really good football team. There's no doubt about it. They won't be quite as good without Zay Flowers on the field if that's the case on Saturday night. They have some depth. This is where, when I talked about the need for wide receiver depth, when we were dismissive about Deontay Johnson, like, this is a team that needed a little wide receiver depth. They did. They needed something.
You got Steven Sims. What do you mean?
Yeah, sure. They got Steven Sims. They needed wide receiver depth. And, to their credit, they did try. I mean, I can't beat them up. They tried to add wide receiver depth, but the player that they got apparently wasn't interested in being depth. Um, Not that I think he's going to be anything more than that in Houston, but so it is. They That'll hurt them. It's nice to have Isaiah Likely, who can kind of be a little bit of a hybrid wide receiver tight end. It's nice. I'm not panicked about it. I still like their top three pass catchers, even without Zay Flowers, are still probably very good. I mean, they're still good. Maybe very good is a stretch, but that group of Mark Andrews is outstanding. Rashad Bateman has been solid, and Isaiah Likely has been solid. They still have three reliable pass catchers. Hopefully Nelson Aguilar is back this week, and
Justice Hill, could you even throw him into that,
no,
assuming
no,
he's
not.
back?
I mean, like, he can help out, but not as a
Mhm.
downfield. He's not lining up at wide receiver. Like,
Well,
he's
yeah.
he's an out of the backfield pass catcher, which is good. Like, when he's on the field, but you don't have like packages where both he and Derrick Henry are on the field together. But yeah, I mean, look, I like Justice Hill as a pass catcher, just not. He doesn't go into this conversation. He's not helping make up for the loss of Zay Flowers. Um, they're not as good, but they're still really good. The O-line got their butts kicked on Saturday. Like that does stand out. I know that some of that they went back to Andrew Voorhees and maybe you get Patrick McCarron. I didn't think Voorhees in particular was awful. Like, I don't think he was the problem. I think the problem was far more complete than that. They just got their asses handed to them. Um, that could be their undoing. I mean, that could be it's interesting watching teams like last night, for example, watching the Lions, and you're like, oh, the entire difference in this game is their offensive line. Like, it's the
Mhm.
entirety of what happened. The story is singular. How did the Lions beat the Vikings and get the number one seed? Their offensive line. That's the answer. Now, not everybody has the Lions' offensive line, and certainly not, for as much as we make fun of the Browns, their defensive front is still very good. But other teams have good, like the Steelers have a really good defensive front. The Chiefs have a really good defensive front. The Bills is, fine. Doesn't strike fear in you. But if the Ravens offensive line plays the way that it did on Saturday, absolutely can be their undoing. 1000% could be their undoing in these playoffs. I'm 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 confident that they have the ability. They are good enough, and Lamar Jackson is for sure good enough that they could make a run. 1000%. Will they? Lord knows. Lord knows. And I mean, like that's the reality of it. I got a column coming today at pressboxonline.com that's about all of those emotions, also about the parallels. Like they really do feel thick, the parallels between this team and the 2012 team, which again doesn't mean anything. Like just because there are similarities, that doesn't mean that like, oh, now you know the Ravens are going to make a Super Bowl run. No idea. No clue. But they exist. There are parallels between this team and that team, and just sort of an entire look at how I'm feeling about the Ravens going into the playoffs. You'll be able to find that at pressboxonline.com. Griffin, what's the reality? Can we take a break or are we not going
Yeah, we should be able to. I believe I wasn't sharing my screen properly
to?
that before, and that
All
would
right.
that obviously wouldn't help. All right, let me make sure I should we will be all set
All right. So
to
this is
do
what we're
this.
going to do. We're going to attempt to take a break, and when we come back in, we will go over we will recap picks for the week, and we'll go over Pats on the ass. That's on the way. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Am I supposed to be hearing something?
Do you not hear it?
No, don't hear anything.
Let me double check again.
Well, all right. It's a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Best laid plans of mice and men, right? Like everything.
All right,
Everybody's got a
let me
plan.
try it. Let me try it one more time.
Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. That's the
Yeah.
way that it works. And this show is the example of us getting punched in the mouth.
All right, let me try it one more time. All right, if that's okay.
We'll give it one more shot and then we'll just keep going.
Nothing, I guess.
No, certainly not hearing. Well, your volume's down,
I
Griffin.
I I,
I can see that from here.
I see that now as well.
Yeah, huh. How about that?
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest event at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food flat. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland, at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from driveeasymd.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at driveeasymd.com.
Pressbox's Project Game Day is the place to be after every game this season. Join Glenn Clark, Rita Hubbard, Super Bowl 35 champion Femi Ayanbadejo, and our cast of regulars as they break down what happened, why it mattered, and what it means moving forward. You can watch the show at PressBoxOnline.com/gameday or Pressbox's Facebook and YouTube page. Project Game Day is brought to you by the Green Turtle Sportsbook in Towson and Canton, Easy Pass, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. So join us for Project Game Day after every game day this football season at PressBoxOnline.com/gameday.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs every season. Crab season, Costas. So make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas's 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
COVID-19 and flu viruses are circulating in Maryland. But don't worry, protection is within arm's reach. Protect your health with this year's COVID-19 and flu shots. It's safe and convenient to get them both at the same time. Flex your protection. For more information, visit health.maryland.gov/vaccines.
This message paid for by the Maryland Department of Health.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Gary, whatever his name. You know who that is.
All right, back in here on a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio, live from home. Look, I didn't talk about it earlier as I shared my thoughts about snow. It's where I am, it's not bad. It's not bad. I think this is obviously a bit of a south of the city storm. It's what it is. Probably still, I guess, smart that the schools were closed and everything, but I don't want to get into this. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be that guy. This is not a bad snowstorm if you're north of the city. If you're in Anne Arundel County, obviously it's a real issue, but up here it's not that bad. Just be smart. Don't do anything silly. We're all adults. We're all capable of handling this. It's what it is. All right, we continue along here on a Monday edition of the program, and on Mondays we tend to go back and take a look at the week that was in picks, and yikes, I had a huge opportunity. God, last night was killer. Last night was killer. We went through all the, we did the college football playoffs. I went 1-3 in those. The only one I got was Notre Dame. But it was all right because Paul Valley went 0 for 4 in those games. So because that's who I'm competing with at the bottom of the table, I was like, okay, game on. We got something going here. We got a chance, man. Like, we can make some noise. It wasn't meant to be. As far as the NFL games are concerned, Cincinnati-Pittsburgh on Saturday night. We got it at 1.5, so we got a Cincinnati cover. A lot of people had Cincinnati at a larger number, and so they did not get a Cincinnati cover in that game because Cincinnati only won by 2 and was utterly and completely prepared when Pittsburgh got the ball back late. Like, it just felt so Bengals. It felt so very Bengals that they were going to end up screwing themselves and not even having the 1% chance that they had, and I'll get back to that in a second. Bully for the Bengals. They won 5 straight games to wrap up the regular season. They didn't quit. They did fire Lou Anaruno. Remember Lou Anaruno was like the hottest coordinator in all of football a couple of years ago?
Was that I guess that was right after the Super Bowl run, and then they were like, oh.
Man, Lou Anaruno is gone as Bengals defensive coordinator. And look, their defense was bad. But I don't know, man. Like, I don't know where that is between play. I mean, they did have Trey Hendrickson, who had a monster. I mean, Trey Hendrickson had a arguable, I guess he finished with the sack title.
Right? Yeah.
Arguable defensive player of the year season, and yet they did not have a good defense. But they finished 9-8, and they do beat the Steelers, who finished the season on a 4-game losing streak. That, of course, is coupled with the Kansas City-Denver thing. Denver absolutely demolishes Kansas City, as they were always going to. That's the way it was going to be. I am blown away. And yes, Griffin, as you see, was on Kansas City, which I don't remember you saying that. What is wrong with you?
I thought, I don't know. I thought Kansas City might, care.
Why?
Because they have good players on their football team.
They
even
don't,
without Mahomes playing, they could still. I thought. I guess I had more.
Go back and look at who was catching passes in that game yesterday. Go back and look at who they actually lined up to play in that game.
Handicap?
When this one I am. Like, some picks are bad picks, some picks are sometimes you have the right thought process, the pick just ends up being wrong. Like, I'll tell you right now, my thought process on Boise State last week was correct. The pick ended up being wrong because their kicker missed a couple of kicks, and because they got the ball back at the end and they only cared about a record and didn't care at all about scoring. Like that, you can't know those things when you handicap a game. Sometimes you do all the right work as a handicapper and you're just wrong anyway, right? Like that happens because it's football. Sometimes the handicapping is insane. And anyone who thought the Kansas City Chiefs were going to try to be competitive in this game was insane. Nuts. I mean, bat S insane.
I thought the
They're
coaches might still
leading.
care.
They're leading. It's why?
Because it's football.
Why? Their
It's
leading
football.
receiver
They like-
yesterday was something called Nico Remigio. That was their leading receiver.
Could be a
The
good player one
only
day.
no.
He could.
No. This is nonsense. I only care. I don't actually care about who you picked. I only care because of the insanity. I'll give you an example of this. This blew my mind. Don Van Natta is a wildly respected sports reporter. I mean, like genuinely respected sports reporter. Was at the center of Deflategate. Was at the center of even going back to like, some of the bigger reporting that ESPN has ever done. Don Van Natta tweeted out, the Chiefs taking a dive today is a low light of this NFL season. Whether their incentive was only rest or also blocking the dreaded Bengals from the playoffs, it's just a supremely bad look and likely self-sabotaging for a team hoping to three-peat. I don't know what happened. But as of last weekend, anyone with a brain recognized the Bengals were not making the playoffs. And I feel like what happened was people really embraced the story of the scrappy underdog Bengals, which also is nonsense. But like this, look at this team still trying at the end of the season. And boy, by gosh golly, maybe they could sneak in. Get the entire F out. The moment you looked at the schedule and saw that a Chiefs team that had already clinched, had nothing to play for, was going to have to beat the Broncos, you knew the answer. They weren't. The irony is that I'll give this credit. I didn't know, I really didn't think that the other things would necessarily fall in line either. The fact that the Colts lost a game to the Giants and the Dolphins lost to the Jets, and it only came down to this, is a minor miracle. But this was never happening in a million years because the Kansas City Chiefs weren't thinking this nonsense that anyone with a brain is peddling that, well, the Chiefs are trying to keep the Bengals out of the playoffs. No. The Chiefs, once they locked up the number 1 seed, were never playing their guys. No matter if it had put the Bengals in the playoffs, they weren't playing their guys. Because any team that would take that risk in week 18 would be insane. It would be utter dereliction of duty. It's incredible to me how much national media was willing to roll with this. How many people were willing to play along with this idea that the Bengals still could make the playoffs? Instead of saying, look, we all know what's going to happen on Sunday. One of these teams is going to look like a CFL team, and the other team is going to look like an NFL team. Saying it was going to take a miracle wasn't even fair to the word miracle. The Bengals did not have a chance at making the playoffs because this was the circumstance. And if you're mad at the Chiefs, seek help. Or if you think that anything that happened in week 18, I can't tell you that the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. They deserve to be the favorites, but I can't tell you that they're going to win the Super Bowl. Whatever happens in the playoffs will have nothing to do. We always try to make some parallel in this rest versus rust conversation. Like, well, if you rest your players, you run the risk. That's 2 weeks without playing meaningful football. Well, did the Ravens lose their first playoff game last year?
They did not. They won, actually.
It's almost like what happens has nothing to do with whether or not you rest your players. Like, there is literally nothing that we have evidence-wise that suggests that if you rest your players for a week and then they have a bye, then you can't win your next playoff game. They might lose. I'd be stunned if they lose to the Chargers or Texans or I guess it would be. It could be the Steelers. It could be whoever the lowest seeded team is. I'd be stunned if they lost their first playoff game. Stunned. Just because I don't think that the teams outside the top three are really a threat to beat the teams. I think there is a serious line of demarcation there. But it's the NFL, and crazy things happen. And as we know, the Chiefs came close to losing a lot of games during the season. Is it possible? Of course, it's possible. Because anything's possible. But if they do, it won't be because they rested their guys. I think a group of football people just got drunk on the Bengals thing, wanting it, wanting there to be an argument for Joe Burrow to be MVP, which there isn't. There is no argument for that. It's hipster douche nonsense. It's this, I want to seem different than everybody else. So I'm going to, look at what would the Bengals be without Joe Burrow? What would the Ravens be without Lamar Jackson? Like, you're not making an argument. They were a mid football team that happened to win their last 5 games. And that's, bully for them. I don't know how people in Cincinnati feel. Maybe they would say they would rather have a high draft pick. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's good that teams continue to compete and try, and that's what we inherently want. But the idea that the Chiefs had some sort of obligation to participate with that. Is anybody mad at the Cowboys? Well, maybe Cooper Rush is. Is anybody else mad at the Cowboys for playing Trey Lance?
Probably not. Maybe people who bet on the Cowboys.
Are people mad at the 49ers because they played Dobbs? Like, what are we doing? What is this? And I know I'm going war on Don Van Natta, and he's one guy, and I probably shouldn't be that worked up about the one guy. But it's not just him. It's all over the place.
Patriots played Joe Milton and won. And then...
Yeah, they did. That is a thing that happened. It cost themselves a #1 pick in the process. Like, this happens in Week 18 all the time. The Browns played Bailey Zappi. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a group of people in Pittsburgh that are furious. Now, they didn't hold up their end of the bargain anyway, but perhaps there are people in Pittsburgh that are furious that the Browns weren't putting their best foot forward in Week 18 to try to beat the Ravens. But I didn't hear any of that. It seems like it's very unique that, like, people really wanted the Bengals to get into the playoffs for some reason. And I even to some extent get it. It's a quarterback-driven league, and Joe Burrow is one of the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL. So I do understand why the casual fan would prefer having Joe Burrow in the playoffs. But maybe, like, be mad at the Bengals. Like, maybe that's where your ire should be. Not at the team that won their games, that did their job.
Someone pointed out that obviously Week 1, the Patriots beat the Bengals. And so that game, so that cost obviously the Patriots, I guess, 1-1, and then it cost with the Bengals missing the playoffs by a game, cost them the playoffs. So it ended up being a very pivotal game. They're losing by 6 points to the Patriots.
It's incredibly significant when it's all said and done. Yeah. Maybe that's what. Now, in fairness, other teams, the Ravens lost to bad teams this year too. Like, let's be. It's not like the Bengals were the only
team
up for it, to lose to a bad team. They needed to win other games. They needed to beat more of the good teams. They ultimately did beat 2 playoff teams because they did beat the Steelers and the Broncos at the end of the season. But they needed to beat more of the good teams if they were going to lose to a team like the Patriots, and they didn't do that. The Bengals. This is the WWE Who Screwed Brett thing. The Chiefs didn't screw the Bengals. The Bengals screwed the Bengals because they put themselves in this position where they were going to have to try to count on it. By the way, and I said this the night the Bills played. Oh God, who did they play 2 Sundays ago? Week 16. And I said then, it was uncomfortable rooting for the Bills, but you had to make sure the Chiefs still had something to play for against the Steelers on Christmas. Like, you couldn't.
Oh, it was that Patriots game. It was that
Patriots. Okay. If the Bills lose that game, then I don't know how hard the Chiefs are trying on Christmas. And maybe ultimately the Steelers would have lost to the Bengals anyway, and the Ravens still would have won the division. But you needed the Steelers to lose another game, and the Chiefs were the best chance of them doing that. So that day, I'm not trying to pretend like I wore like a Bills jersey and had pennants or some S like that, but like I was rooting at home for the Bills to win that game because I could see the future. And once a team is clinched, I would be stunned if they had done like in week 17. I don't think the Chiefs would have gone to the lengths they went in week 18. But the idea that they might have taken Patrick Mahomes out of the game in the
At
third
halftime,
quarter,
yeah.
yeah, something like that, 100%. That would have been on the table on Christmas to say, hey, we've already locked up the number one seed. We're not leaving him out there any longer. Let's get him some work and then get him out of there and have him ready to go for January because he's Patrick Mahomes. Like this, of all of the teams in the NFL, it's funny because the arguments that people think they're making, if this was the Bills, you could make the argument of, well, you got to keep your guys sharp. This is the Kansas City Chiefs, the team that in NFL history has been most prepared for every moment they come across. The one thing that they had an obligation to do is make sure their guys didn't get hurt. That's it. Only obligation they had. And again, if you're a casual football fan, I get why you're bummed that Joe Burrow isn't in the playoffs. Joe Burrow is a top 4 quarterback in the NFL. It is a shame to not have him in the playoffs. But it ain't the Chiefs' fault that they're not in the playoffs. It's the Bengals' fault that they're not in the playoffs. Insanely, bunch of people were on. I can't believe that more than half of us were on Kansas City.
They're still the Chiefs. They're still the
no,
Chiefs.
they're not. That was
Yes, they are. They have the arrow on their helmet.
Yes, they're a
the
team that was wearing. It's like saying Tiger Woods is still Tiger Woods. No.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
If
Tiger Woods was getting 10 strokes, I'd probably bet on Tiger Woods.
And that would be a terrible bet. A god-awful bet for you to make. Anyway, that was what happened. Now we were all way off on the New Orleans-Tampa thing as Tampa was favored by 2 touchdowns. And look, they ultimately did get the job done and rally in the second half. But a lone wolf winner, Jeremy Conn, on the Saints there as they did cover the 13.5. My word, look, the Baltimore-Cleveland thing, for some reason, John Little Rock was a lone wolf on the Browns. And I guess that was interesting into the second half. Like there was definitely some jeopardy there, but ultimately
I think he's picked against the Ravens. I can't. I guess we could confirm it. I feel like he's picked against the Ravens like almost every week.
Is John doing a bit? Is John doing a wacky?
He picked the he
picked Houston last week. Yeah, I guess he's doing a wacky. Maybe he's doing what our guy Femi Adebayo is doing. He's just trying to
Pittsburgh.
Say the Ravens are no good.
He did pick the Giants. Yeah, so
look at that. Maybe it's a wacky. I don't know. But ultimately, the Ravens do cover. And then, last night that was a bitter pill to swallow. As if I had won that one, then I would have been in a tie with Paul Valley. Instead, I remained 2 games back because, it's what it is, man. What it is. Detroit. Look, they look good. There's no question about it. If I'm being completely honest, watching that game reaffirms to me that those teams aren't as good as the top AFC teams. Detroit's offensive line is outstanding. There's no question about that. It's an outstanding offensive line. And Jahmyr Gibbs is a hell of a football player. But, I mean, it took them a while. No matter how many gifts the Vikings were giving them, it took them a while to be able to take advantage of it. I just don't think the teams with Jared Goff and Sam Darnold, for as nice of seasons as they put together, and Darnold was awful. I mean, he was awful last night. He looked like Sam Darnold. For as nice a seasons they put together, I don't.
I mean, not an MVP. He didn't look like an MVP.
Yeah, but believe it or not, it's almost like it was utterly asinine that anyone ever suggested that Sam Darnold should be in the MVP conversation. Like we just say, hey, these guys have good stats, so they could be the no. It's nonsense. But yeah, Detroit gets the job done there. So for the week, not a great week all around. High watermark was Jeremy Conn going 6-3, and he was the only 6-3. Only a couple of 5-4s, Kyle and KZ, but it was a big 5-4 for KZ because it puts him in first place all by his lonesome. At the bottom end, the free fall continues for Ryan Shell, who maybe by the time this is all said and done is going to end up at the bottom of the table.
Jeez,
Like, it is
doing that.
insane what's happened to Ryan Chell in our picks contest. As he was leading with some distance not that long ago, he's dropped all the way into 6th place. He's 7 games off the pace after a 2-7 week. At the bottom of the table, again, boy, there was a lot of drama going into last night, but unfortunately wasn't meant to be. I end up going 4-5 for the week. Paul Valley 3-6. So I do climb back within 2 games. I've got that going for me, which I guess is nice.
It's gonna be a tight race here. Tight race.
It's something. Yeah. I mean, we do still have. I guess we have 8 games to pick. We have 8 games to pick.
Oh yeah,
this
yeah, because the college football games. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have a full-ish
8-5.
week this week. Yeah, 8, 5, 2, and 1. So we're left with 16 games remaining on the season and a 2-game deficit that I still have to make up. So that's your picks recap. We'll get
Does
it
that
up
mean
at-
I'm clear? No, I'm not clear since you're 14 back of me. So I could, in theory, technically still lose.
Yeah, I think you're okay. I think you're safe. I think we can go ahead and assume that you are.
Sure?
Yeah,
I think
you can go ahead
you're
and
right,
assume.
but
I think you can assume that you're safe. All right, let's dish out some pats on the ass. Pats on the ass brought to you by the print issue of Press Box. It is our annual best of issue, and it's available for free right now at your neighborhood Royal Farms and in the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box. You can read it all at pressboxonline.com/best of. So go check it out right now. Our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, Lamar Jackson, is on the cover. Go get that right now. All right. Here's the deal. A lot of candidates for pats on the ass again this week. And I'll tell you right now, I ended up leaving Nate Wiggins off, and it's weird because Nate Wiggins almost certainly will be number 1 on tomorrow's list. But I left Nate Wiggins off just because for the game, I thought he made a big play. And then for the game, I thought he made a big play. You know how this works. You pick 5 Ravens, 2 must be offensive players, 2 must be defensive players. The 5th can be another offensive player, another defensive player, a special teams player, or a coach. Rank them 5-1 with number 1 being your man of the match. Get them in at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. You can go Glenn Clark Radio on Blue Sky, however you want to do it, and someone will win a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn, who we love. Number 5 for me this week. I really struggle with who should be number 5, but I ultimately went with Rashad Bateman, in part because the Ravens needed to get going offensively, and without Zay Flowers on the field, they needed Rashad Bateman to step up, and he did. And it's as important to Saturday's game as you feel like it is important moving forward. That if they don't have Zay Flowers on the field, they need Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews to be the guys that you need them to be. And Rashad Bateman ultimately was exactly that. Look, the touchdown, to be fair, I mean, he was butt naked. I mean, as naked as a jaybird. But he stepped up, and they needed him to step up. And so, given the circumstances, that made the difference for me. Rashad Bateman is my number 5.
I went ahead and put Odafe Owe as my number 5. Had obviously a very, very good game. I went back and forth potentially as putting Lamar here as a 3rd offensive player, but I evidently went with 3 defensive guys. Owe had a very good game. Was constantly back there getting in the face of Bailey Zappi, and obviously, and picking up his 10th sack was a big deal. I'm not sure that the Ravens are going to be bringing him back, but he had a very good year. And I think yesterday was a pretty good indication of what he looks like. And then I had Bateman 1 slot higher. I had Bateman as my number 4. Everything that you said, stepped up big with Zay getting hurt. Browns were a corpse, but still big, and makes you feel good about him going into next week, potentially likely without Zay.
I want to go back for a second. When you said you didn't know if Odafe was going to be back, they picked up his option. Like, he's going to be on the team next year. I'm trying to.
Oh, they did pick up his option?
They did. Yeah, they picked up Odafe Owe's option. They did that. So he's definitely back next year. I mean, the question of whether or not he gets a long-term deal, I don't know. The way that he's risen, I think he's put himself in play to get a long-term deal. And again, this always goes back to what are your alternatives if you don't give Odafe Owe a long-term deal? I guess they could draft somebody this year that could have a monster season next year, and that could make them more comfortable.
You're right. My bad.
Yeah, I was very confused as to what you were saying. I'm like, what am I?
Well,
What am I?
thank you for clarifying that for me.
Did I forget something
My
here?
bad, my bad.
Yeah, I look, Adafe Owe has been really good, and he was really good in other ways that just weren't translating to sacks, and that clearly has changed this year. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to think about it because I do understand that like any edge rusher that hits the market is in line to make an extraordinary amount of money. And if you want to say, hey, I still think there's a difference between Adafe Owe and the best edge rushers in football, and so you can't pay him like he's one of the best edge rushers in football, and if that's what his camp is looking for, I could see where that would be problematic.
And
Um,
when you still have Hamilton and Linderbaum on the horizon, it does feel it does,
Yeah, Linderbaum's an interesting one, right? Because that's going to get somebody's going to ask the question of how much can you really pay a center? Like, and I don't know what the answer to that is. Hamilton, obviously, you're gonna
right?
whatever the number is, you're just gonna, what's your number? Fine. Like you have to do that. The others, I think, are more interesting. Um, Also, the more quarterbacks sign, the more you're going to look at the Lamar Jackson deal and say, hey, it's actually not that bad, right? Like that's the way that's going to go. Anyway, yeah. So you've got Dafe at 5 and Rashad Bateman at 4. My number 4 is Chris Board. Man, I don't know what to say. It's funny because I almost never. I actually did Pats on Saturday night, and then I was just like sort of sitting around like waiting. And somebody, I am not. Everybody knows I'm not a PFF. Like I like some of the stuff PFF does. I don't think that the PFF grades are Bible, but I think I saw that Chris Board was like I think
He
Michael
was the
Pierce.
second highest. He was the second
Yeah.
highest on
And
PFF.
and
Yeah.
it backs up everything I said, and I brought it up on Project Game Day. Like there is something about Chris Board and the way that he plays the football that it's almost intoxicating. Like it's so incredible to watch a guy that again was just available and nobody wanted him, and you watch him play, and you're like, dude, this is everything. This is what guys that you drafted with high draft picks don't do. Like he plays the ball constantly. It's unreal how well he plays the ball, man. It blows my mind how good this dude is. And to take nothing away from, Malik Harrison, who I think has played well, Chris Board, I think, deserves way more credit in the conversation about how this defense has turned around because man, like the middle of the field is something that we have talked about for years with the Ravens defense. Even the Ravens defense has been good, and he is making a massive difference there. So Chris Board is my number 4, who again is just playing the ball so incredibly well. And then look, maybe this is a homer pick. Although I think ironically, I also saw that on top of the number, the play, he was, I think, the Ravens' highest graded defensive player,
He
according to
was.
PFF.
Yes.
Michael Pierce is going to be number 3 because it's just the only. I don't know what else to do. Is it a homer pick? Yeah, you guys know my affinity for Michael Pierce. I love the guy. I'm so insanely happy for him. Also, Michael Pierce is a hell of a football player, and the Ravens have been even better with Michael Pierce on the field. I thought he was phenomenal in the Steelers game. I mean, difference making in the Steelers game. The moment itself, it's so cool. It's just so cool. And he's just such a good guy, and his story is so great. And the fact that he's been able to come back to Baltimore and write new chapters of his story, just so happy for that guy, appreciative of him. And yeah, I mean that's one that will, as I said, and I got a text. I tweeted it, and I got a text. We've already got our first for the best of 2025 issue of Press Box. We've already got our first moment that'll go there as Michael Pierce. That was just so cool. So yeah, he's number 3.
He's gonna be a little bit higher on my list actually. I did have
That
Nate Wiggins. I did have Nate Wiggins on my list. He's number 3 here.
means
And
you left somebody off that I can't believe you. All right, go ahead.
well, then I guess you're gonna have to fight me. But yeah, I mean, I don't use PFF as gospel either, but the pick six was obviously huge, and he had, according to PFF, the passer rating against him on Saturday was 8.3. So yeah, Nate Wiggins had a pretty good game. He's having a great season as well. So Nate Wiggins, with the pick six and all, is number 3 on my list.
Look, man, I don't know how you could leave either of these two guys off, so I'll just go ahead and knock them both 2-1. Number two is Derrick Henry, and number one's Lamar Jackson, because the answer is Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. And look, Derrick Henry only had 8 yards in the first half. We all saw the same thing. And then we saw Derrick Henry, and we saw him take over the game when the Ravens pulled away. And if you want to try to hold Lamar Jackson's completion percentage against him for the day, all good, but we all know what happened. I mean, that if you want to add that to the list of concerning things, the Ravens have a history of like days where everybody chooses to drop the ball. Like I don't know how to explain it. Thankfully, it didn't haunt them in this one, but in the first half in particular, there was a wacky bit going on where everybody wanted to drop the ball and take a turn dropping the ball. But as far as Lamar Jackson himself, he was in control. He was making good decisions. He wanted to run a couple of times. Again, he was trying to, maybe you want to argue he was trying to do too much a couple times. I don't know, maybe like the fourth down play would stand out as a, hey, that was there. You should have just taken it as soon as you saw that it was there. We could talk about that. There's lots of things we could talk about. But Lamar Jackson was in control of the football game from moment one. So Derrick Henry's two, Lamar Jackson's one, and the idea that it's anything other than that is nonsense. But
I didn't have Lamar on Lamar was not on my list because, yeah, as you mentioned, the completion percentage. But and I mean, it was just he had a good game. I thought everyone had a pretty solid game. It's not like Brent Stevens is on my list replacing Lamar Jackson. And Henry was two. Michael Pierce was number one. For just that play alone was pretty special. And he was he was taking on double team. I don't think he registered like an official tackle, but that was because he was taking on double teams. So Matabike and Owe and other guys could come in and get some stops and get pressures. So Michael Pierce was my one, Henry two. And Lamar just misses my list as much to the dismay of Glenn and maybe others, but he's been on the list. He's been on the list plenty times. And I still appreciate everything that Lamar does. It's not a shot at him.
This is people trying to make a Joe Burrow MVP argument. Like it's just not there. It's just not there. Get me yours at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. Oh, hello. Or Glenn Clark Radio on Blue Sky for pats on the ass. And we will continue to share them throughout the day. Somebody will win a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn. When we come back in, our buddy Jeremy Conn, fresh off a strong 6-3 week in picks. We will catch up with him, see what's going on in his world. That's next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs every season. Crab season Costas. So make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas's 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with two sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at costasinn.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4, available in a hybrid or gas-only model. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and it's our very special Best of 2024 issue. On the cover, we celebrate our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, Lamar Jackson, as Bo Smoka profiles what the quarterback means to the community beyond the football field. Also inside, we celebrate the top people, performances, and moments of the year in local sports. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always read the entire issue and find the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Need a trophy or award that's as unique as the achievement? Look no further than Crown Trophy. With locations in Owings Mills and Gaithersburg, they specialize in custom trophies, plaques, and medals for any occasion. From sports and academic awards to employee recognition and corporate gifts, visit crowntrophy.com today and let them help you create a lasting memory for your school, team, or business. Crown Trophy is a proud supporter of the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. crowntrophy.com.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCRs. Continue along on a Monday edition of the program. Weather has impacted a little bit sports-wise. Morgan State was scheduled to be home tonight. They have bumped that game back to tomorrow. As of right now, I believe Coppin is still playing tonight at home. But fortunately, not like a ton that was scheduled to be going on today, so not like a ton that has to be moved. And again, depending on where you are, it probably doesn't need to be moved anyway, although I get it if you can. It makes no difference, I'm sure, to the folks at Morgan whether they play today or they play tomorrow, so that's an easy decision for them to make. All right, into the 11 a.m. hour of today's program. Coming up in a bit, we will catch up with Dr. David Chow and get his thoughts on Zay Flowers. We are waiting to see if John Harbaugh is going to provide an update during his press conference. Also, coming up a little bit later on this hour, we're going to catch up with Adalius Thomas. Hopefully, Jeremy is going to be checking in with us in just a second here. We'll see what's going on with him. Is that him right there? Is that our friend, host of the Big Bad Morning Show, 105.7 The Fan? I'm starting to think that might be Jeremy Conn, who's buzzing in right now at the moment, but he's muted. He's got to unmute himself in order for us to talk to him. And I believe
it's *6. I don't know if I think he can hear us, so he should be able
he's
to.
on the phone. Is that the way that
he's
it
on
works?
the phone. Yes.
So, hey, Jeremy, what's up, buddy?
Thank you for the *6. That's kind of silly.
It is, yeah.
What was
silly? Have you? Go ahead.
No, what was the thing if you wanted to, like, back in the day? So you and I are this age. This will mean nothing to Griffin. If you wanted to check like somebody's phone number, was it *69 that you had to hit? Like if you missed a call from somebody.
Yeah, what was *67? That was one too, but *69 would tell you the number of the person that called you.
This was
Maybe *67 was a movie. I don't know.
*67. Oh no, that was how you blocked your caller ID. Was *67.
Oh, okay.
If you didn't want somebody to know, yeah, that's what it was *67. That was the way you did it. So did you make it in? You're in Anne Arundel County. There was like real snow down there, wasn't there?
Oh my God, it's awful down here. It's still awful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I made it in this morning, and the way I tell people, so when I first started delivering pizzas, we were considered essential workers. My shop never closed. So, I was delivering pizzas in a Cavalier with front-wheel drive, and so I'm fine driving in this. The only problem is, you kind of get fool's gold at times where it's like, oh, the roads are clear here, and then you start to speed up, and you're like, oh, hell, they're not,
right.
Because that's when people hit those patches and start sliding. So, I mean, there's about 15, 20 accidents on my drive home. It's people don't know how to drive in it. There's stuff from the off to the side of the road that's actually in the middle of the road now, cones and stuff, because people can't see the lines, that they actually end up driving over different things. And then you have people that drive way too fast and way too slow, and there's not much in between.
Did you bring your Speedo to work with you today?
I thought about doing it today, but it's supposed to be our new program director's first day, but he's not coming in today, obviously. That would have been a great introduction.
Hey, buddy, I'm your morning show host. Nice to meet you.
It's cold out there, so don't judge me.
Right. And a lot of I've in some places that is actually if Jerry Jones was your program director, you might have actually been fired. That might have been. That worked out.
That's definitely a possibility. So, yeah, I mean, if you don't have to go out in this, don't. It took me an hour.
See, this is the crazy part. We stayed home today to do the show. I'm telling you, my wife went out, and my wife can't drive when weather's nice. She's a terrible driver. Where we are, not bad at all. It's a couple inches.
Really?
I'm telling you, I appreciate. It's funny because I have a trivia team, and tonight is supposed to be our trivia night, and it's very clear that some people on the trivia team were just planning on trivia being canceled because they're just I think it might still be bad up here. And I'm looking and sending them the weather forecast. no, it says literally where you are, there's 2 inches of snow and you might get another half an inch of snow. You're fine. You just got drunk last night and don't want to have to do anything today. And that inevitably, like where you are, undoubtedly, real problem. Where I am, like, I don't need to, so I didn't go out, but like I absolutely could have driven to work today. No question about it.
Yeah, it's funny because like for me, like I knew I was totally effed when I got on 97. Like my house is right off of 97, so I live like as soon as you get to Glen Burnie, that Baltimore Annapolis exit, or on 97, the very first exit. I live right off of it. Like you could walk to my house. So I get on that exit and I'm going, oh, we're effed because 97 has not been touched, and it was just like this is awful.
And that also, by the way, the one thing that I would say about not going out today is that the moment they close the schools around here, they do not care anymore. Like schools closed, we don't need sending a plow out where where I live in the middle of nowhere. Like the moment they close the schools, they no longer care about the roads. I have looked out the window probably 20 times just to see if they've touched it with a plow since this. No, they haven't bothered. Now, again, it's not that much snow. Like it's passable, but they just don't give a rat's ass as soon as they close the school.
So one of the funniest things about our station, and maybe I'm revealing too much and I'll get in trouble for it, but it's interesting. They don't want anybody to work from home, even though we did it all in the pandemic. We're capable of doing it and putting on good shows. They don't want anybody to work from home. So they tell us we're essential personnel.
Right.
Call us late last night and say, if you want us to put you up in a hotel near the radio station, we can do that. I'm like, yeah, it's great timing. It's 8 o'clock at night. I got to figure out what I'm doing with my dogs and then drive to a hotel.
Okay, but also what hotel is near the radio station?
I think it's in Towson. I think that's the
closest. That's what I was going to say. Like, that's not.
And it's not any better because those back roads there suck. You know,
that was when I worked for CBS or Odyssey, whatever you want to call it, in DC. That was always a thing. That was like, hey, if anybody wants a hotel, we'll put you up in a hotel. But like they wouldn't just offer it to the morning show; they'd offer it to like literally anyone who was scheduled to work that day. And a couple people that just weren't making any money in radio would be like, I get to go, jacket in a hotel tonight. Like that sounds great. Like they clearly did not need the hotel room, but would just take it anyway because they were like living at their parents' house or something.
Well, it's funny because the best part of our show, or like the show ends today, and we're like, "Where's Vinny and Haney?" And they're like, "Oh, Vinny's off, and Haney's doing the show from home. He lives in Glen Burnie. It's really bad out there." And I went, I live out there. I drove It's like, what do you mean it's really bad out there?
That's the way it goes, man. That's the way it goes. Yeah. All right. So I ask you this question, right? Like, where are you with the Ravens' ability to make a Super Bowl run? Like, where are you going into the playoffs?
I think they absolutely make a Super Bowl run. I think they're going to be the team representing the AFC. I know it sounds kind of strange, and I said it this morning on the morning show. We'll see if I'm right, but I think I will be. If the Ravens, no matter where the Ravens go, no matter where they play leading up to the Super Bowl, they're going to be favored against every team. That includes being in Kansas City. They would be, in my opinion, they would be favored in Kansas City if they go there based upon the numbers and how
I was okay. So I thought it looked like they would be like a 1-point dog is the way that I was trying to look at the numbers. You think they'd be favored even in Kansas City?
Yeah. Well, and again, let me preface this too. If you're on the opponent's home field and you're a 1 or 2 point dog, that's really giving you the nod saying this is a better team on a neutral field. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? When the point spread's done.
Yep.
I expect the Ravens to be, if you're calling your local guy, he called a pick -1. So no matter who you bet on, you get a -1. But essentially that's kind of telling you where they think the Ravens are. They will definitely be favored over Buffalo in Buffalo, in my opinion. And we'll just have to see. I just think Buffalo, for them, it's a terrible matchup. I don't think they match up well with the Ravens at all.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. It's funny for me, Jeremy, because like, again, from a pure football standpoint, like I think the Ravens have a good chance. I think that we have to acknowledge that the Chiefs are the Chiefs. And until you go beat them in Kansas City in the playoffs, there is no world in which you deserve to be favored. Like I weirdly, I think this Chiefs team is better than the Chiefs team that won the Super Bowl a year ago. Like they have 5. They don't have to try to count on Kadarius. They won a Super Bowl with Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore being guys they had to count on this year. Like their group of pass catchers this year are way more legitimate than the group that they had to work with a year ago, with the one exception being that Rashee Rice was playing out of his mind at this time a year ago. But outside of that.
And then, well, to your point too, like you think about it. So they trade for DeAndre Hopkins. They drafted
Yep.
Xavier Worthy, who started to come into his own. And then it's like, oh, it's playoff time. Hey, remember when we signed Hollywood Brown? He wasn't healthy. He's healthy now. So
Yep.
it's
And
like, well, that's
and by the way,
kind of a really nice addition.
and the way that Gray has come on this year, like we can all say, hey, Travis Kelce isn't the same guy, but that's been mitigated. Like it's not like Travis Kelce hasn't still made plays. Like it's not they haven't relied on him the same way, but he still made plays. And Noah Gray has been like a legitimate threat. The Chiefs to me are as dangerous as they've ever been. And the fact that it has to go through Kansas City, I couldn't sit here and say, and I appreciate that's how you feel, but I couldn't do it. To me, the Chiefs deserve to be the favorites. I believe the Ravens can go beat the Chiefs. I believe they're capable of it, but I couldn't call them the favorites over the Chiefs just because of those circumstances.
No, I'm just saying from a point spread standpoint is what I would say. Like the Chiefs should be the odds-on favorite to get there. They're the 1 seed, but that's not always how it works. And when they're creating the line, well, if you want to go to the islands or in Vegas and the algorithm spits it out,
right?
I think when they spit it out that the Ravens they're viewed in Vegas and analytically speaking as the best team in the league. Like that's how they're viewed, and that's why you don't see them as an underdog this year. I mean, you hardly saw that at all, even when they were going through the rough stretch. So. Everything's kind of going right. I mean, the Zay Flowers thing sucks, but that's why you trade for Deontay Johnson, so you have him in the fold, so you're good to go. Oh, wait a minute. They don't have him anymore. So
No.
Are you there?
They didn't. Yeah, I'm there. Yeah. No. I'm still here.
I was talking to myself.
No. I get it. I get it, man. Like, and we talked about it at the time. This is why I thought they needed wide receiver depth. Like, I was in favor of the Johnson trade because they needed the depth, and it does sting them that it didn't work out and that they don't have them when they needed depth. Like that part is the part that like I can't shake, but it certainly helps to have Isaiah Likely, who you can split out wide a little bit more and can help you solve this problem. Hopefully Nelson Aguilar is back and ready to go if Zay Flowers isn't on Saturday. Like I can't pretend like it doesn't hurt them to not have Zay Flowers on the field, but I think the Ravens really are about 10 points better than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, I really do. Yeah. I genuinely believe there is a notable difference, and it was a weird path that they took to getting there, but they ultimately should have finished at least 2 games better than the Steelers in this division. I think they're that much better, so I can't convince myself that Zay Flowers' absence would be the reason why suddenly I think they lose to the Steelers. Like, it's football. Anything could happen. And I also don't think that like the Steelers' history really matters all that much at home. Like all of that, like Jeremy, I genuinely be worried about like the dark evil, the voodoo, all of that if the game was in Pittsburgh, because that has proven to be real. But being in Baltimore, like that just hasn't existed. Like there hasn't been some weird history where the Steelers just have the Ravens number in Baltimore.
It is weird because the Steelers, including the Cincinnati loss, which I don't think they should have had any business losing to that team, but that's beside the point. They're going into the playoffs on a 4-game losing streak. They faced what people would deem to be 4 really good teams in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, or Philadelphia, Kansas City, and Baltimore, and then Cincinnati. I think there's some wholesale issues in that locker room. Like, I don't know if look, everybody wants to point their finger at Russell Wilson because he's a cornball, but like, I think when you start looking at George Pickens, I think he's causing serious problems in that locker room, and I'm not sure he's good enough to be that guy causing those problems. So, by the way, he was going for 1,000 yards on Saturday night, and he got 1 catch for negative yards. So
yeah, he sure as hell was not good enough on Saturday night. Yeah, he was bad. I mean, he was bad, and you're right.
It does like seem like want to be there.
Now, maybe some of that is mitigated. Maybe they just look over and it's the Ravens, and that allows them to get up. And look, man, it would be wrong for me to pretend like I think the Ravens just go out and win by 30 points, but I really genuinely believe they are notably better than the Steelers, and I just can't get worked up about it. Jeremy Conn is with us here on GCR. What do you make of this asinine conversation nationally about the Chiefs laying down yesterday? Like, this is always what was going to happen. If anybody thought the Bengals legitimately still had a chance of making the playoffs, like they were doing it for their own edification. I can't believe that anyone with a brain is trying to make it seem like there's any amount of controversy as to what the Chiefs did yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the Bengals should have beaten the Patriots in week 1.
Right.
Like maybe you should have beaten anybody in the first couple of weeks and not been 0 for whatever at home. And Joe Burrow said as much, which makes me appreciate him a little bit more when he was like, hey, are you worried about Kansas City benching their players? He goes, they won their games. They won the right to do whatever they want. What's better for that team? We can't complain. We should have won more games. And I think that's factually how it is. And again, like, it goes back to what I said to you when the Chiefs played the Bills and everybody goes, oh my God, that's the best football game I've ever seen. But can we change overtime? Like, is it the best game you've seen, or do we got to change something? I don't think there's anything broke with the league right now. With the way that things are set up for teams to win, I think they do have to take a look at winning your division and getting in the postseason. Obviously, what happened with Minnesota last night, and then having to go on the road now. I just think that's so silly. But maybe I'm on an island with that one.
No, those are the two, the two biggest. I look, it's so funny because Steve Johnson and I are doing this new segment where we try to fix sports. We get together every couple of weeks, and my like biggest issues. I still do have an overtime problem. Like, there should never be. You change the rules to benefit the offense too much. You can't say, well, it's still football, just go get the stop. Like, both teams should see the ball in overtime no matter what, period, point blank. Both teams should see the ball. That should always be the case, regular season, postseason, whenever. Spare me the player safety stuff. You're playing Thursday night football. You played Wednesday afternoon football this year. Like, spare me. Spare me. It ain't that. Like, there should never be a tie in American sports. Like, just stop. Stop.
By the way, I don't think there should be a Monday night playoff game either. I think that's ridiculous. But they got to make more money.
Yeah, you're probably right about that from a fairness standpoint. You probably are, but I don't know. Tonight I'm bitter. There's not a football game to watch. I mean, I guess I could watch the
FCS championship.
Yeah, thank you, Griffin. Could watch that.
Go North Dakota State.
There you go. I'm bitter that there's not a football game to really watch tonight. Like, selfishly, I know Thursday night football is a joke. You will never get me to be the guy that says get rid of Thursday night football, because I'm just at the age where I'm not going out anymore. And if I'm going to be at home, I want to have a football game to watch. So that's where I'm at. And yeah, like, you're right. You're probably right about the playoff thing. But yeah, that needs to be fixed. The fumble through the end zone thing, I'm never going to give up on it. Like, it's absolutely insane that we give a team possession that did nothing to earn the possession. Nonsense rule. You want to make it a penalty.
Usually fumbled from an extra effort thing too, man.
Correct.
That's usually what happens. But
I've acquiesced to the idea of, like, you want to say they got to go back to the 20 because you want there to be a penalty. I don't think there should be any penalty personally, but I would tap in order to fix the absolute utter nonsensity of that rule. And 1,000%, like, the idea that you just guarantee a team a home playoff game because they happen to be in the division that had the other shitty teams. Stop.
Yeah.
Like, once you went to 4-team divisions, it's a group of 4 teams. 4. You happen to be the best of 4. So we give you a home playoff game.
We don't know how good those 4 are going to be in any given year. So Ed and I had the conversation this morning about it, and he goes, well, what if you're in a division and all the teams are crappy and you dominate the division? I said, yeah, well, that's what happens. Those are only 6 of your 17 games you're playing. The other 11 are around the league. And it's so silly to me because we have a situation now where the 2 best teams in the NFC record-wise are in the same division, and one of them who played their asses off all season long now has to go on the road on a short week coming off of a Sunday night game. I guess it's not a short week because they're playing on Monday night, but you get what I'm saying. They'll get into the playoffs and it'll be a short week if they win. We've looked at all these teams that have had better records. Home field advantage is such a huge advantage in sports, period. But in the NFL, more so than any other one. I mean, the Colts were 12-4, went to the 8-8 Chargers and lost. Same thing with the Saints. When they were 12-4, went to the 7-9. That's the Marshawn Lynch game, and lost to them. We've seen it happen numerous times. It just doesn't seem right that a team can dominate, and because there's another dominant team in their division, then all of a sudden they have to go on the road.
I've heard the argument for make a 1-game buffer. Like, if the team behind you finishes within a game of, or if the team that wins the division that would get the home field advantage finishes within 1 game of you, then even if they have a worse record, I've listened to that argument because you never know when, like, strength of schedule comes into play, and, like, you had 13 wins, but you did it against a really weak schedule. They had 12 wins, but they did it against a tougher schedule. I'll absolutely listen to a 1-game buffer, right? Like, there should be a 1-game, like, if you win your division and you finish with 11 wins and the team that's a wild card finish with 12 wins, that's not egregious that you get a home game in that situation. But it is utterly egregious when you get to, like, 10 and 14. Like, that's nonsense that's where we're at.
Let me throw this your way because I'm kind of interested to get your thoughts. Like, I am pro player. I like when they get their bonuses and everything. What they did for Mike Evans is great for Mike Evans.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know that helps in the game. And honestly, like if you watch the Tennessee Titans who were playing a game, Will Levis might be the worst quarterback in the history of this league.
Jeez.
Like he was literally celebrating whenever he got a guy a bonus. Like he wasn't even trying to win the game. He was just trying to get his guys a bonus, which it's a meaningless game. And they wind up with the number 1 overall pick now, which is great for them. But I don't think they had any visions of grandeur of getting that. Like the Patriots were going to go in and win a game on purpose.
Right.
I just think some of this stuff, like it's hard to say don't give these guys bonuses, but when the public knows and everyone knows, it's like, all right, they're going to go try to get that now. And we saw that.
Yeah, I think the Mike Evans thing is a little bit different just because like that's a genuine, you could call that a real record, like, 1,000 yards and like that. I do feel like there's
But it
something.
didn't happen in the context of the game though, right?
No,
It happened,
you're
the
right.
game was over.
And again, and it was the only thing that could add any risk to the fact that you had the game won in the division. Like it's still questionable, but I at least feel a little bit differently than if it was just like some random number. Like, hey, if Mike Evans finishes with 100 catches, he gets $3 million. Like there's something real about matching Jerry Rice, and it's Mike Evans who we all have like incredible appreciation for. So I feel a little bit differently than that. Yeah, I get it.
I was just gonna say, like, he's so likable, it's ridiculous.
God
He's one of the
damn,
best
man.
guys in the league.
It's Larry Fitzgerald to me, right? Like, and maybe he's not like the gentleman that Larry Fitzgerald, as far as being like a person,
Well, he's
is
a Harry
concerned.
Potter expert, if that does anything for you.
I did not know that. It doesn't do anything for me, but I think it's cool. Like, there's a part of me that thinks it's cool.
I mean, like,
He's just-
I'm talking like he took the expert quiz that they had, and I think it was like 10 questions, and he got 9 of them right.
Oh,
like
that's
he's a
wild.
Harry Potter geek. Yeah.
Dude, he's just, it's like, of all of the players that exist that have nothing to do with any team that I root for, or any, like, there are a few guys that I like more than Mike Evans, or that I want to have on my fantasy team more than I want to have Mike Evans every year, because it's just like, God damn, that guy is good. Like, he's
Do you
just
realize when we get in the postseason now? It's Marshawn Lattimore got traded to the Commanders.
Oh,
so we
yeah,
get
that's
Mike
right.
Evans
Yeah.
versus Marshawn Lattimore in the first round of the playoffs.
That doesn't suck. That doesn't suck at all. That'll be a fun way to
Just don't
spend
get
the
kicked
Sunday
out
night.
for fighting.
Right? No doubt about it. All right, buddy. What's you're in action all week this week.
Yeah, snow-filled week. I don't know when I have it. I think the next time I'm technically off is when we go to Ireland in like the end of March. But yeah, so it'll be the same stuff. I mean, obviously today's all Ravens. We'll be getting into what the Orioles did, the Charlie Morton signing, why everybody hates
yeah,
it,
we haven't even
all that
talked
other
about
stuff.
that yet. Yeah, it's the Morton thing. All right, give me your 30 seconds, because my 30 seconds is in a vacuum, fine, right? Like if this is the move that you make, then yeah, it's okay for us to say it's disappointing and not good enough.
Yeah, I was really upset. So I hadn't been upset over any of the moves yet. This is the one where I'm going, man, I don't know. And then I heard somebody kind of breaking it down, and I'm going, that's an interesting take. With you're adding the Japanese pitcher, you add Charlie Morton, you've got a bunch of guys here that are kind of okay, right? Like a bunch of fifth starters maybe, or guys that you could use to get you through the season. He eats up innings. People keep pointing out he's never been hurt. But if this helps you bridge the gap to Kyle Bradish, like, I'm all for it. Like, I don't envision Charlie Morton being a guy that's pitching, game 2 in the postseason, or at least I hope that's not the case, unless he's just rolling at 40-some years old. But I do, the other thing that I like about it is putting a vet in there with some of these young guys, and the way that Corbin Burns had an effect on him, I think that's a good thing to have. So the money, $15 million or whatever, it's like, okay, couldn't you use that elsewhere? But I'm okay with it. I wasn't thrilled with it when it happened.
Yeah, it's sort of that. You're not far off from where I am, so we agree about that.
Yeah.
At JCon Sports, and of course ConcreteLocks.com is where you find him. Fresh off a 6-3 week in our pool, he was the high water mark in picks this week.
Nice.
Jeremy Conn, love you, brother. Appreciate
how are you.
you.
Are you dreading?
I'm still two. I made up one game, but I'm still 2 games back with 13 left to play or whatever it is. So
so we do it through the playoffs.
Yeah. We keep going. We'll do the 2 playoff. We'll do the 2 semifinals, and we'll do the 6. So I guess there's 16 games left, and I'm 2 games back. So yeah, we'll see.
You're 2 games back of who now?
Paul Valley is who I'm 2 games back of.
Oh, I got to figure out who I'm rooting for. I kind of like Paul.
Yeah,
I like you too.
I like Paul, and it'd be better for business if I lost. Like, I understand that. Like, people would like that more if I lost and I had to pay the punishment.
That's disgusting,
yeah,
man.
but that's where I am. No doubt about it. All right. Love you, buddy. We'll talk to you next Monday.
All right, man.
It's Jeremy Conn with us here on GCR. All right. Now you got to tell me what's going on. Now you got to.
Trying to work through some difficulties here with Dr. Chow. Hopefully,
but like, are we gonna have time to do it?
I think so.
Okay.
And if we don't, then I guess it's on me.
Is it? Is it? I mean, so what do you want me to do then? Do I just dance or what? How do I? Oh, Griffin's got to go take a phone call, so I can't even. Yes, as our buddy Matt Torper pointed out, we are doing the show over Zoom today so that we could do a show. It's not the way that I want to do the show, but it's the way that we did the show because the offices were closed today, and I'm glad that there is a backup option that we can do this. Um, Jeremy was able to call in. I don't know why he wasn't able to just click the button and let us see his beautiful face, but that's a conversation for another day, and I'll deal with that another time. But we're trying to make that work so that we can continue to give you as close to a normal show as we possibly can. So hopefully Dr. David Chow will join us, but if not, I don't know. What's going on?
We're having a lot of technical difficulties, and it unfortunately it seems like it may not today might not be the day for.
All right then.
Yeah.
There was an update, however, from John Harbaugh. It doesn't give you any actual information. Yes, John Harbaugh meeting with the media this morning. He also doing it over Zoom. John Harbaugh says Zay Flowers' knee injury is not season-ending, called him, quote, day-to-day, unquote, as he works toward being available for this week. Would not confirm the Ian Rappaport report that it was a sprain, left that alone. So I have no answers beyond that. But yeah, that's Jeff Zrebeck says Harbaugh said it's not season-ending injury for Zay Flowers. Basically said he's day-to-day, and Flowers is going to work as hard as he can to get back as fast as he can. Didn't have an update on his availability for Saturday. Quote, it's his knee, unquote. He wouldn't confirm if it was a sprain. Harbaugh said that running back Justice Hill and left guard Patrick McCary, who have both been battling illnesses, are, quote, trending well, unquote, for Saturday. So that would be good. Did not would not comment on whether the team got any requests to interview coordinators for head coaching jobs, as we start to see that's going on around the league. We haven't even talked about the Patriots thing. I mean, they just really want Mike Vrabel, apparently. And then Harbaugh said that Arthur Millet's status is, quote, up in the air, unquote, for the postseason. Quote, I don't have a great handle on that right now, unquote. Arthur Millet could have been brought back. They could have started his window last week. Obviously, they did that for Charlie Kohler and then immediately activated him. They did not start the window for Arthur Millet last week when he was eligible. And based on that response, it's maybe starting to seem like that's not going to be the case. All right, then we'll grab a break, and when we come back in, Adalius Thomas is scheduled to join us. AD, he was back in town this weekend. We'll catch up with him, see what he saw from the Ravens, see how he's enjoying life out in Boulder, Colorado. That's on the way. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
COVID-19 and flu viruses are circulating in Maryland, but don't worry. Protection is within arm's reach. Protect your health with this year's COVID-19 and flu shots. It's safe and convenient to get them both at the same time. Flex your protection. For more information, visit health.maryland.gov/vaccines.
This message paid for by the Maryland Department of Health.
Whether you're focused on luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive style, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest event at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails. Plus, our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an easy pass from driveeasymd.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at driveeasymd.com.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
You are on mute, Glenn. Would love to hear what you're saying.
Yes, you're right. I
And
decided
there
that I
we
would do
go.
that for the commercials, is that I would mute myself. And then I was like, oh, right, I'm supposed to be doing a show. Yeah, Snowy Monday, working from home here on GCR. But back in here with you. And always a pleasure to catch up with our next guest, who I believe is also on mute. So we'll have to get him off of mute. He is the great Adalius Thomas, and he was back in Baltimore this weekend. 80, it's Glenn. It's so good to chat with you, my friend. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
All right, man. How you going? How you guys doing, man? Appreciate it.
Doing all right, dude. First of all, how's like life back in college football? How's life at Colorado? Like I've enjoyed living vicariously through all your posts this year. How you enjoying the being back in college football, that experience?
Man, it's refreshing, you know, to see to be around the guys, to give them all the knowledge that you can try to give them, and see them kind of grow and do their thing. You know, it's an honor to, you know, to be a part of a Heisman Trophy person, Travis Hunter, and you know that is probably a lifetime thing that you don't run across every day, but to be around it and be a part of it was great. And so, you know, I just thank Deion for giving me the opportunity to be around the guys.
I don't think I've ever asked you, like, were you and Deion close when he was in Baltimore? Like, was that a relationship that like had lasted for 20 years? Is that how this came about?
Yeah, you know, we've always when he was there, like his family came to my house for Thanksgiving and different stuff like that. So we remained in contact on and off. Like, it ain't like we talk every day or nothing like that, but we did remain in contact. And so again, just going out there and being around the guys, even when he was at Jackson State, I went there as well. And so that's just how it came about.
So is this something that you, like, I know you're working as an analyst. Do you envision yourself continuing with coaching? Is it something that you want to do, or is this just more like, hey man, it's fun, I guess I can do it right now? Or is it like really part of the future for you?
You know, I think that it's something I can see myself doing full time.
Okay.
And so, you know, it's you know, I guess opportunities present itself, you know, authentically or whatever it is. And so I probably would have gotten in there earlier, but my kids were younger, and I understood the dedication and really wanted to, you know, not miss out on their childhood, because everyone said, like, look, if you got younger kids and you want to be a part of their this, that, and the third, you definitely, coaching is something that you'll miss a lot of it. And so that's kind of like how it came about. And so now that the kids are older and kind of doing their own thing or whatever it is, I think that it's something that I'm open to.
I appreciate that. No, I love it. I would love if that meant like maybe Adalius Thomas was back in Baltimore, for example. We wouldn't mind that one bit. 80 is with us here on GCR. You know. Hey, and you did you do like a training camp with the Ravens at one point? Do I remember that right?
I did do a training camp with the Ravens. I think Coach Wink was or Dean. I can't remember. I think it might have been Wink. When Wink was there.
Okay. Man.
Coach Wink was DC or whatever it is. And so yeah, I'm definitely open to it. You know, what that looks like, again, I don't know. I know they're in the middle of season. and everything else. But as it goes, again, it'll come about authentically, and only the future knows.
I love it. I love it. AD is with us here on GCR. All right, so you got to see the Ravens on Saturday. How good you feeling about this group going into the playoffs?
I feel good. I feel good about it. I just, it's one of those things of each week is a different task. And, I'm sure the guys are up to the different tasks and all the different things. And so each team presents their own challenge. And, I think that Pittsburgh has kind of limped into the playoffs, and I'm hoping that they limp out of the playoffs the same way they limped in, by us not taking them for granted, not giving them any kind of breathing room and starting fast. And so, their defense presents a challenge to us in the past with Watt and the other kid on the other side, I think it's Highsmith, the Hightower, or whatever his name
Highsmith,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, Highsmith on the other side. Those guys present problems coming off of the edge. And so I think that it's important for us to establish the run early in this game, just because of that, to kind of neutralize that and control the tempo of the game. And defensively, it's Pickens and the little change of pace back, I think, gives us more problems than the main back, 30. His name is leaving my head right now.
Derrick Henry?
No, for Pittsburgh. They're changing pace back to have 30.
Oh, Jalen Warren. Yeah, sorry. So I'm sorry. My brain. Yeah, Jalen Warren.
Yeah,
of
Warren.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, so Warren seems to give us more issues than Najee Harris does. But again, that's just my novice assessment of when we've played them. They kind of have that, but I feel good about it. I think that everything that we need to do, we don't have to do something we haven't never done before. And that's what's great about any of the games that we've lost in the past. It's all things that we can control. And so that's what you always feel good about. I think we are hitting the strides at the right time and going into the playoffs with good momentum. And, hopefully that just continues that wave. You need to ride that wave for 5 more games.
You obviously know quite a bit about Ravens Steelers, the rivalry, the history. Does any of that matter? Like the fact that the Ravens are 2-8 in their last 10 games against the Steelers, does any of that matter on Saturday night? Like, does any of the history between these teams, or is it, do the playoffs neutralize some of that? Like, it almost doesn't matter who the opponent is. You don't get lost in any of that stuff when you play a game like this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it matters now, because at the end of the day, nothing that you've done in the past will win or lose the game now, right? And so I think that you use the past to kind of understand your opponent, of how they've attacked you. I think you understand them a lot. It's a lot less energy to know Pittsburgh's game plan than it is to know somebody that you only play every 4 years. And so the game starting out now, you use that to their personnel. You know what they like to do well. You know what they've done to beat you. So your individual matchups are the things that I think you got to focus on and understand how they're going to attack you or how to attack them, if that makes any sense. And so I believe that we can go in, be who we are, let Derrick Henry be Derrick Henry, let Lamar be Lamar, and take advantage of it. And, I'm not sure of Zay's availability right now for the game this week. And so, who steps up and takes his place? Because, he was an intricate role in that slot and running routes and digs and even deep balls. So I think that's next man up, as it always goes. But at the same time, it gives the opportunity for somebody to come in there and make plays.
What about Adalius, the fact that the Ravens have struggled and come up short in the playoffs, going back to Lamar's arrival in 2018? How much do you feel like that weighs on them as the playoffs? Like, do you worry about the impact that could have if something, if they do get punched in the mouth on Saturday night? Do you worry about how the past could end up impacting them mentally, emotionally in this playoffs?
Well, I mean, I would say that this team is different than last year's team, and every team is kind of different. And so bits and pieces were there for all of that. And so it won't impact you the same. And so you have a lot of new faces, you have a lot of new players. And so you lean on your leadership, you lean on the experience that you have in the locker room to kind of, what do you do when you face adversity? You know, who are you when you face adversity? And those things are things that you hope not to see, but I don't think that it should play into their mind. I think it should be more of motivation of, okay, then everybody's kind of like over the Ravens in regular season. Everybody talks about the Ravens and postseason. You know, getting to the postseason is a great accomplishment. Yes, it is. But also getting to the postseason and not winning it all is a disappointment, because that's what Lamar talked about the whole time was, you know, he wants to bring a Super Bowl to Baltimore. And I think he has the talent. I think he has the team to do it this year. I think he had it last year as well. But execution has been our downfall, whether it's offense or defense or special teams, one shape, form, or fashion. And so I think that they use that for motivation in their preparation. And that would show on Sunday. And that's what I look for them to be. And I'll be very disappointed if they come out lackluster.
AD, you know a thing or two about being a jack of all trades. I mean, you know a thing or two about being a Swiss Army knife type. Kyle Hamilton was being used on, you know, very similar to the way that you were always used. Like, he was being used everywhere. And then halfway through the season, the Ravens had the worst pass defense in the NFL. And they said, we're going to have to just move you back to playing a true free safety. And since that moment, they've had the #1 defense in the NFL. What do you make of Kyle Hamilton and really a guy that I'm starting to think is putting himself in the lineage of the greatest defensive players in Ravens history, and the work that he has done to just say, okay, that's what I'll go do. Well, I'll go stabilize an entire defense by making that move.
I mean, it says a lot about him physically, but it says more about him mentally, to be able to move and do the different positions and be able to play those things. It says a lot. He's a great young kid, very bright. And so I think that, like you said, he's solidifying himself in Ravens history, as well as NFL history, of being one of the top safeties there is, and having to account for him no matter where he is at all times. And so I think that allows us to be versatile. I think it also allows us to be, like you said, stable. And so being able to blitz off the edge, being able to go to free safety and change things up as you get into the playoffs, it may give you some flexibility to give some new looks that you haven't shown before. But hats off to him, because he's definitely been all that everybody said he was when he was coming out of Notre Dame.
No doubt. I mean, he is a star. There's no question about that. AD, is it right? Like, this is now, again, I point out, since week 11, the Ravens have had the best defense in the NFL, both, from a yard standpoint and from a scoring standpoint. Are we right to assume that, like, this is who they are now, and that, like, whatever happened in the first 10 weeks of the season, that's not going to creep back up? Like, this, they have proven that's enough of a sample size for us to believe that this defense is that good going into the playoffs?
Well, I think you are who they say you are as far as your numbers are concerned. But I think that also the biggest thing is doing it every week. What you've done the last 17 weeks or whatever it is, that is great. We know that you can do it. But the question is, can you do it now, each and every week for 4 more weeks, to get to what you really want to go? Your ultimate goal is that. And it may not be to be the give up the least amount of yards or whatever it is, because in certain situations you give up yards because you're working the clock. And so I think that you got to kind of take that into account. But I think that they have the confidence now to say that, okay, we've shown that we can be who we thought we were. We can do that consistently. Now let's turn it up a notch. Because when you get to the playoffs, everybody tell you the speed of the game gets faster. Everything is more, magnified. And so it's very intricate that they are focused on the task at hand and understand how people are going to attack you, which I think that Pittsburgh is a great matchup for us because we know the opponent. We play them every year. So the wrinkles that you're going to get is only so many wrinkles because you know them because you play them 2 times a year, because they've been in your division. And so they knowing each other, it's about one-on-one matchups and winning those one-on-one matchups. And that is what we haven't done with them, whether it was a strip sack and it was this and it was that, missing field goals, all those things are played into play, and hopefully all those things are out of the way, right? Hopefully those things are reared their head. We put a Band-Aid on them and seal them up and put them to bed for the next 4 weeks. And then that will help us continue down the road of, okay, then we've been through adversity. We've been through this. And you lean on those times that you had in the season to push you through in the playoffs. This will allow you to then come back.
It's so funny you bring up adversity, right? Because I think about you guys, obviously in 2000, and there being that stretch of 5 games without a touchdown, and then the 2012 team that had to fire their offensive coordinator in the final month of the regular season. Like there has never been a Super Bowl champion in Baltimore that hasn't faced like serious in-season adversity. I guess is there something to be said for what going through a stretch like that does to a team? And this year, a team that had, the defense was brutal to start the season. They lost games with the Browns and the Raiders, like inexplicable losses. Is there something to be said for how that can help shape a team for a Super Bowl run?
I think it is. I think, it has a lot to say about the character, the adversity, the resolve. It's one thing to have a problem and focus on the problem. It's another thing to fix the issue. And so you can focus on the problem like, okay, then this is the problem. What is the solution? And so they've done a great job as a coaching staff of doing that, of making adjustments. That's what the game is about. The game is about going to the sideline, making adjustments, and then going back out there and performing at a high level. And that's what they've been able to do. And that's what they're going to continue to have to do in order to win week in and week out now, because there are no more crappy teams. All those teams are going home. So you got a Pittsburgh team that is very capable, but I think that you can't give them hope. They are a well-coached team with Tomlin, but they have some, I guess, fragile parts right now with Pickens, he complaining and all this stuff. Ignore it. Ignore it. Make him complain more. Make him complain more by not letting him get a catch early. Make him complain more by hitting him often. Make him complain more by controlling the tempo of the game. That's how you fix that. And then let them turn on themselves. But you can't give a team that has limped into the playoffs any hope, because then they try to get momentum. And that's not what we want.
That's well said, my friend. All right, so an old buddy of yours just checked in with me. I don't know if you remember from ESPN Radio 1300 back in the day, doing a show with my guy, Chad Dukes. Chad just said,
"Oh man, Chad Dukes."
I know. I remember you guys were great together, and he just wanted to say that he still feels the Ric Flair chop that you gave him one night at Michael's Pub, still to this day, nearly 20 years later. So he said it damn near killed him. Damn near killed him. AD, are you still involved in? I assume that the restaurant's still going well, right?
Yes, absolutely. We still at Grill 620 Steak and Seafood. Always you can come out there and grab you some brunch before the game on Sunday. This week the game's on Saturday again, so we don't open till 4. But come out there, man, and grab you some good oysters on a half shell if you like oysters. Get you some great crab cakes, or you can get you a good butcher block. Whatever you need, we got it for you. And all the bourbon that you would like. The best
there you
go.
Town. There you go. AD, love you, brother. Always appreciate you. Hopefully, we'll be hanging out like in New Orleans in a couple weeks, getting ready for the Super Bowl, man. We will be in touch. Thank you for doing this morning. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
It's AD, Adalius Thomas, with us here on GCR after he was back in Baltimore on Saturday, checking out the Ravens win over the Browns. All right. Today's show is also brought to you by County Sports Zone. CountySports.zone is the website for you to find out everything going on in high school sports here in the state of Maryland. A lot of cancellations today, obviously, with schools being closed across the state. So you want to look at updated schedules, find every score for every sport, every team all over the state. Go to CountySports.zone. It's proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Yeah, we talked briefly about Charlie Morton with Jeremy Conn. Did not get a lot of opportunity to talk about it. Look, again, it's very macro micro, right? In the micro sense, I I I don't know how anyone could actually be mad about signing Charlie Morton to a one-year deal. In a vacuum, there is no such thing as a bad one-year deal. To say, hey, you could have spent that $15 million elsewhere. If that's where you're at, like if a one-year $15 million deal is preventing you from doing something else, the problems are significantly larger than we thought they were. And I get it. I get the arguments against Charlie Morton, but that's the price of pitching. Competent pitching costs you extraordinary amounts of money. That's the reality of the circumstances. If Charlie Morton at $15 million is costing you anything else, then this offseason was not going to be what you thought it was going to be. Do I think that Charlie Morton's going to be a Cy Young candidate? Does he replace Corbin Burns? Absolutely not. But, can he be a Kyle Gibson plus? Can he be a Jordan Lyles plus? You would think so. You would think that would be the type of thing that Charlie Morton could offer this team, where the innings are valuable, where his experience is valuable, where he can be helpful, even if he's not dominant. And if you just look at it that way, I couldn't possibly be angry about signing Charlie Morton. The problem is, it's difficult to only look at it that way. And I do acknowledge that, Charlie Morton was not particularly good last season. I do acknowledge that. And it's been a few years since Charlie Morton had his last really good season. Like, if you think that he's going to come back and be vintage Charlie Morton, then I think you're going to be disappointed by that. But I don't expect that. To me, Charlie Morton is not here to be a difference maker. He's here to add one more arm to the rotation. And you need that. Now, you need it better. Like, that's the problem. The problem is you needed Charlie Morton. I'll make this comparison. Somebody dug up the tweet that I sent. I think it was the day before the trade deadline. Maybe it was the week before the trade deadline, when Josh Uche was dealt to the Kansas City Chiefs. And Ravens fans were like losing their minds over Josh Uche. And I was like, what? Like, what are you angry? You've got Josh Uche at home. You need better than Josh Uche. And as it turns out, Josh Uche can't even get on the field for the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, it's been a nothing acquisition for Kansas City. Not to say, again, the problem being, at the time, I thought the Ravens needed to do better than that. They didn't do better than that, but as it turns out, they also had better at home. We didn't realize that Odafe Owe was going to continue to have an incredible season. The Orioles needed better than Charlie Morton. They haven't gotten better than Charlie Morton. So if you separate the conversation from the micro and just and you then instead look at the macro, then you're going to be disappointed. I don't know that at this point you're going to end up being anything other than disappointed. Like, I'd still like to hope that they're going to swing a trade, that they're going to figure out a way to add in another top-notch starting pitcher. But am I confident about that? I mean, how could I be confident? Yes, it's fair to point out that, at this time last year, we still had no idea that Corbin Burns was going to be a Baltimore Oriole. And there is time for them to still swing for something bigger. But on the macro, it looks very meh. This just does not look like a staff that you think can win a World Series. You need bulk pitching if you don't have an ace. And so Charlie Morton does help with bulk pitching, but you need that bulk pitching to include your bullpen. And that's still the part. Like now, if this is what it's going to be rotation wise, there needs to be 2 to 3 more legit bullpen arms added into this mix. I'm fine with Charlie Morton. He's as good of a bet, if not a better bet to me than the guys that were going to be competing for the back end of your rotation. The Dean Kramers, Albert Suarez's, and, Cade Povich's of the world. I'm fine with Charlie Morton being the back end of your rotation. And guys are going to get hurt, and you're going to need probably all of those guys at some point this season. But you need a better top of the rotation option. And hopefully Zach Eflin can back up the season that he had a year ago. And hopefully Grayson Rodriguez can stay healthy and is ready to take even another step forward. And hopefully when Kyle Bradish comes back, he looks like Kyle Bradish, because, a healthy Kyle Bradish is an arguable top of the rotation-esque guy. But again, there's a lot of qualifiers in that conversation. There's so many qualifiers in that sentence that's why. Yeah, go ahead.
That was what I kind of felt like with the Charlie Morton thing. It felt like Odell Beckham almost from last year, where it's very much this guy's very very late in his career now, but he should add some depth to this spot where you obviously need a lot of depth. And yeah, hopefully when guys inevitably end up on the IL, he's one guy that can step in and he's not going to add like 10 wins to the team, but he's gonna have a starter or two that I think we'll remember at the end of the season. So
maybe. Look, again, just Charlie Morton, fine. Totality, concerning, really, really concerning totality. And then you add in all the other stuff that we talked about last week post Corbin Burns, which is like this is also a spiritual conversation. We wanted to see a splash this offseason. We wanted to see the Orioles step up in the world and move into a different tax bracket. And we're not seeing that. And again, if they win a World Series, despite the fact they didn't add to their payroll, none of us are going to care. Like, we're just not. No one's going to sit back if they win the World Series and say, oh, but they didn't have one of the top 5 payrolls in baseball. This doesn't count. But it's about our faith that they're going to be able to win a World Series. And we don't have that. And we can't have that with the roster. That doesn't mean that, again, they couldn't have 8 things go right. Like, it is possible that everything that we're talking about that could go right does go right. And then they acquire more. And again, they still might not be done. I'd like to hope they're not done. They damn well better not be done. But there's not a whole lot left that is splashy. Again, they could trade. They could make a trade for. Did you make a trade for Dylan Cease? That's splashy. That's a splashy move. But there's not a ton left out there that still qualifies as splashy for the Orioles. This is probably about what it's going to be, with maybe one. I don't know. I don't want to say anything that I'm end up being silly about saying afterwards. We continue to judge it as it comes. At the moment, this remains not a good enough rotation on paper and not a good enough roster on paper to be able to win a World Series. But that can still change. All right, let's get a tidbit. Griffin, tidbit is brought to you today by the CIAA tournament.
That is right. Baltimore is welcoming the excitement of the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament once again at CFG Bank Arena this year from February 25th through March 1st. Go ahead and get your tickets now at Ticketmaster.com. Again, February 25th through March 1st for the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament at CFG Bank.
All right, what you got?
I've got a few things.
Hang on. I guess we should touch on it. Yeah. So the Patriots obviously did fire Gerard Mayo. We all assume that's for Mike Vrabel. Like, you just
Black
assume.
Monday news.
Well, I mean, Doug Peterson's out in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
That seems like it was inevitable. I mean, my God, what a mess that's been. I think the real question now, like you have to put into focus, how do people feel about Trevor Lawrence? Because that'll determine how good that job is. There have been moments where Trevor Lawrence has looked like he was going to be a high-level NFL quarterback, but they have been fleeting. And so that'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how prospective coaching candidates view Trevor Lawrence. Because if you think that that guy is there, then it's as desirable, you know, a job as you can probably get. It is the weird bit, right? Like I had a couple people when we were doing the Mike Vrabel thing yesterday. My guy Eric Arditi, of course, noted Titans fan, and so he knows the thing about Vrabel. He's like, if you're Vrabel, why do you want to be in New England? Like, and the answer is because you think you might have a quarterback. And that alone makes it a more desirable job than the Jets, than the Saints. Like the two others that we knew, the Bears would be the one that you would say is more desirable than that. But the Bears, it seemed like the conversation has been that they want a more offensive-minded coach to pair with Caleb Williams. So I don't know if that means that they would be out on Mike Vrabel or if some of that is bluster. Just the idea that you think you might have a quarterback in New England and competent ownership, because that is part of the conversation here. Like with Chicago, it's been a dumpster fire for some time, and in Jacksonville, like Bill Belichick would rather be at North Carolina than be in line to work with the Cons. Like it's a damning thing. But still, like if you there's only so many of these jobs that come available. Having Trevor Lawrence is probably better than I don't know what the Saints are going to be doing at quarterback. I have no idea what their plan is going to be. I can't fathom that they're going to try to go into next year wanting to see more of Spencer Rattler. Like I think that's got to be that they know they have to address the quarterback position. Are they the landing spot for Sam Darnold? Are they the landing spot for Kirk Cousins? I mean, that's a lot of money to be. I don't know. I don't know. And again, they don't have a high enough draft pick to be able to address it. Like two teams are going to come away with quarterbacks. I assume the Titans are coming away with a quarterback. And I mean, the Giants have to do everything they can to get a quarterback. Like they have to.
They are three.
Yeah. So like that's the problem now is are the Browns going to draft a quarterback or not? Like
or trade back even like if someone
for another team that needs a quarterback.
Yeah.
Like if I'm that might be the danger for the Giants essentially have to draft a quarterback. So they might have to pay a ransom just to move up the one pick and get ahead of Cleveland. But at the same time, Cleveland can't spend money on a quarterback because their money is sunk on Deshaun Watson. So it would seem like if they're going to have another quarterback, they have to draft their quarterback. So like, my God, imagine being the Giants at this point. Like, the hell do you do? Like, you almost have to be the team that takes the chance on Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold going back to New York. That'd be so funny. Presuming the other two teams take quarterbacks. Maybe there's some world where, like, the Browns are reluctant to draft a quarterback that high because they still, like, there's somebody in that building. It's like, well, we're still paying all of this money to Deshaun Watson. Like we still have to hope that there's some world where we can get something out of him. I don't know. I can't.
I don't think
I can't operate that way. I can't imagine operating that way. But you just never know. You never know. Yeah, I would think those two teams have draft quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So Doug Peterson out in Jacksonville. Meanwhile, Indy is staying put with both GM and head coach. The Giants are staying put with both GM and head coach.
We should do Giants offseason Hard Knocks again.
I cannot believe that they are sticking it out. With Dable, that's one thing. I can't believe, and this goes back to like the competency of organizations. How, whatever. That's their problem. It's not our problem. Like that's their issue that they'll have to deal with. That's insane to me. The Dolphins are sticking by their guys, so it looks like it's not going to be a crazy.
The Raiders are sticking with Antonio Pierce. Is that right?
Is that true? I've not seen.
I mean, I haven't seen any updates, so that's why I guess.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't think they've said anything one way or the other yet.
Okay. So I guess it could still happen. Antonio Pierce.
Mike Garafolo says Raiders head coach is slated to meet with the media in a few hours. So you would think that if he does that
unless they do the Eberflus,
right, where like 30 minutes beforehand they go ahead and move him. Yeah, he's scheduled to meet at 1:45 Eastern time with the media. So yeah, presumably if he does that,
and they're picking at 6, so I guess it's Aiden O'Connell show again next year then.
Well, yeah, they're going to have to be. This is the problem with there only being 2 quarterbacks available in the draft. And it is the reason why one of these, like a Jalen Milroe.
Unless Drew Aller declares.
Yeah, Drew Aller. Like, not everyone is going to be able to get their quarterbacks. And so somebody's going to have to, like, I'm trying to think of who else is it. Like, somebody might still have to take a chance on Justin Fields. You know, like, there might still have to be a team that says that's going to be our answer.
You would think that'd be the Steelers, right? Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that, right? Like, you think they'd look and say, okay, we got our answer. There is a limit to what Russell Wilson is capable of doing. So,
but if they can't retain Arthur Smith, is it going to be worth it? Because he's getting interviewed by the Jets.
That's so. He's not getting that job. Apparently, Rex Ryan was like on the radio today saying, "I'm getting the Jets job." Okay, guys.
I hope so. That'd be awesome.
All right. I think that's everything. I think that's all. So go ahead. What you got for tidbit?
I got from I clicked at it. There we go. The Tennessee Titans, they do get the first overall pick. And not only that, they are one of the worst teams in NFL history because they become the first team to lose 14 or 15 games against the spread as well. The worst ATS record of any NFL team in history as they finish 2-15 against the spread. That comes from Evan Abrams at the Action Network. So there you go. The Titans, one of the worst money-making teams for you of all times.
Just such an abomination.
I've got I'll be able to throw these in throughout the week. So we had 40 passing touchdown, 40 touchdown passers this season. Only the third time in NFL history that we have had 40 touchdown passers.
You want me
the 3 this year? Yeah.
Okay. Well, this year, obviously, it's Lamar, it's Burrow, and wow. It's weird that I'm not confident in the third one, right? Like, is it Baker?
It is, in fact, Baker Mayfield.
Okay.
Yes, he tossed his 40th touchdown late yesterday.
I knew it wasn't Josh Allen, but that's the only one that I knew that it wasn't, right? Like, just because we paid so much attention to those numbers. So I'm like, is it possible that it was Goff? Like, is it possible that it was... No. All right.
I guess it'll be hard for you to try to just pick out the year. So I guess I can give you the years.
Okay. Hang on. I'll just guess if some... Wait. I was just going to guess if somebody was involved with it. Was Peyton Manning involved with one of them?
He was not.
Was Patrick Mahomes involved with one of them?
He was not.
Okay. Was Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers, yes, was. He was involved.
What year was it?
Maybe this one doesn't count because it was 2020.
No, God damn it! Why are we still doing this?
40 touchdown passers in 2020.
2020. Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, yes, was one of them.
See, I would have guessed anything. The other one would have been Mahomes. 2020. Justin Herbert. No, not 2020.
Not Justin Herbert.
2020. Josh Allen?
Not Josh Allen.
Stafford.
Not Stafford.
Christ.
God.
How
many other times he threw 40 if this was his only year?
Good.
Let's see. Passing touchdowns here. Yeah, this was his career watermark. 40 touchdowns in 2020. That was the most that he ever threw in his career.
Uh, I don't know.
NFC quarterback at the time.
NFC at the time, NFC quarterback. So he's either not a quarterback at all or he's an AFC quarterback now. Russ? Is it Russ?
It is Russ. Yes,
Shut
Russ.
up. I do not
Brady,
remember the Russ 40 touchdown season.
Brady, Rodgers, and Russ in 2020 was the only time
All right.
Russ went for 40. And then I guess Rodgers is in both. 2011 was the other time. So Rodgers was one of them in 2011.
All right. 2011. Breeze.
Yes, Drew Brees.
Okay.
And you may have already said this guy's name.
May have already said this guy's name. Stafford?
Yeah, Matt Stafford. Stafford, Rodgers, Brees.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Very good.
And then, well, I did have another one, but I guess we don't necessarily need to do it.
Do we need?
It was, well, it kind of.
By the way,
comes in.
finally, a plow has showed up. It is taken until
A
12.
plow has literally just showed up in front of my house as well. Too,
How about that?
Weird.
How about
Yeah,
that?
weird.
How
Weird.
about that?
Well, because it's kind of a theme, somewhat part of a theme today. But I think Jonas shared it on Saturday. Owe picking up his 10th sack. That is only the fourth time in Ravens history they've had two double-digit sackers.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm not gonna be able to name.
He's also only the
years.
10th guy. He's also the only 10th guy to have 10 plus sacks in a Ravens uniform.
So you want me to name all the double-digit sack guys?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go ahead and do that one.
So Terrell Suggs.
7 times. Terrell Suggs.
Elvis Doomerville.
He did, in fact, 17 sacks for Doomerville.
Matabike last year.
Matabike.
Van Noy, obviously, and OA. How many guys total am I looking for?
We are looking for 10, so we have 5.
10.
5 more.
Bulware and McCrary.
3 times. Twice for McCrary. And then 1 time each for the other 3.
1 time each for the other 3. It does get tricky now because I don't think Judon ever had a 10-sack season.
He did not. At least not here. Did he have one?
Yeah, he might have had one in New England. That's possible. Man. And Jadeveon was 9.5 last year, right?
Yeah, not Jadeveon.
Damn. All right. How about AD?
Yeah, Adalius Thomas.
Okay.
He had 11 sacks in 2006.
Okay.
Judon had 12.5 and 15.5 of his first 2 years in New England.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Za'Darius, I don't think had double Za'Darius.
Not Za'Darius.
Yeah, I didn't think he did. This is Paul Kruger didn't get double digits.
No, he did not.
Justin Houston.
Nope, not Justin Houston.
Son of a bitch. I mean, I don't think Haloti ever got the double digits. I'm trying to think of like if it's a wild card, like it's an inside linebacker or a defensive tackle or something like that.
Both still technically like defensive ends. Yeah.
Still defensive ends. Jesus. Ay. Yeah, like it's not Jarrett Johnson.
No, not JJ.
Oh, how about Trevor Price?
Trevor Price.
Okay.
It had 13 sacks.
Okay, yeah.
In 2006.
Yeah, I should have gotten there earlier. Yeah. And then what year? Give me the year.
They won a Super Bowl this year, 2000.
So I already said McCrary. I already said Bulware.
Or maybe. No, yeah, he was the only guy in double-digit sacks that year.
He's the only guy in double-digit sacks. Rob Burnett?
Rob Burnett had 10.5.
I do not remember him having.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So the duos are Van Noy and Owe, of course, this year. Doomerville and Suggs, most recently in 2014. And then Trevor Price and Adalius Thomas in 2006. And then Bulware and McCrary in 1999.
How about that? All right, very good. Let's get tubular.
All right, let's do that right now.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, here's what's coming up totally tubular-wise. As I speak, Coppin is still slated to play South Carolina State at home tonight at 8 o'clock. So I don't know, but it's still listed. It is still scheduled at 8 o'clock, ESPN Plus for that, only local team in action. The rest of the college basketball slates, Big Ten hoops, Wisconsin Rutgers at 7, Ohio State, Minnesota at 9 on FS1. Yeah, we didn't talk about Maryland.
No.
I don't know what they're, not a good weekend for Towson either. They lost to Charleston.
Yeah. Not making free throws. Don't get to the line.
Losing,
I'm talking about.
Right. Losing to Oregon doesn't suddenly make me say that like Maryland is fraudulent. This was always going to be a very difficult trip. Like going to the Pacific Northwest is not going to be easy. The disappointing part was that Jacoby Gillespie had an otherwise really good game and then melted down in the final couple minutes. I appreciate that like a point guard feels like it all has to go through them. But like on the one possession where I ended up taking the horrible long three, there actually was a shot. There was a shot that was there earlier in the possession. He had a good ball fake, but didn't realize it was going to work. And instead of taking what was a good look from three, he attacked and then kept his dribble going and ended up settling for an awful look from three. And then he was
trying to make 15 seconds. Still early in the shot clock too. Yeah.
They got to prove that it was just a bad trip to the Pacific Northwest. And it'd be unfair to use the term must win because there's way too much of the season left. But like, this game on Friday night against UCLA we'll talk more about it with Patrick tomorrow. This becomes really massive for any of like the big goals that Maryland was looking into. Like they can't lose at home to UCLA and they're going to have to beat somebody. Like they've got to prove that they're capable of winning on the road. And then the other thing too is that Derek Queen had a couple of moments yesterday, but he even got to a point where it just looked like he was not confidently finishing. Like he was just throwing the ball in the direction of the hoop and hoping. Just bad. It was a really rough performance. And who was the kid from Oregon that just kept knocking down all the threes, whose name is
oh my God, Shellstat, was that his name?
Yeah. God damn, that kid was nuts. And obviously Baltimore's own Kwame Evans.
Yeah, Kwame Evans. Yeah,
it's always tough. All right. Anyway, yeah. So that's a bummer. So that was the Big Ten hoops for tonight. What else is coming up tonight? The FCS Championship.
Yes.
That's the one that Griffin's going to be glued to on ESPN. Monday Night Football. Montana State and North Dakota State at 7 o'clock. Monumental and NHL Network for Capital Sabres at 7. NBA TV for Suns Sixers at 7 o'clock. The Suns, they've solved all of their problems. They're going to put Bradley Beal on the bench. That's how they're going to fix things moving forward.
Send him back. Send him back to the Wizards. Yeah. Come on.
Sure. Heat Kings at 10 o'clock. The Heat don't have any problems either. So just a fun night for teams with no problems on NBA TV. USA for Wolverhampton Wanderers and Nottingham Forest at 3 o'clock. And then tonight, for the first time ever, on Netflix.
That's why there's nothing else on TV tonight.
Yeah, for the big Raw, WWE Raw Monday Night Raw debut on Netflix tonight, 8 o'clock, with a loaded card. Loaded, the biggest card in, I don't know, they're going on. CM Punk and Seth Rollins squaring off tonight on Netflix on WWE Monday Night Raw. So that's the biggie. What you got non-sports wise?
Really nothing. On Fox, they're doing a TMZ Investigates thing with Luigi Mangione, the mind of a killer. That's on Fox tonight. If anybody wants to,
it's not nearly enough time to have any interesting information.
They've already solved it. They figured it out. They know why he did it.
I mean, I think most people have solved it for what it's worth.
And then for Fallon, we'll have Joe Manganiello. Is that how you say it? The dealer?
Yes.
Deal or
Correct.
No Deal Island 2 starts tomorrow night, I think.
Is he still married to Sofia Vergara, or did
No, I
they...
believe he's got a new girlfriend.
He's a very
yeah.
handsome gentleman. So
Yeah, he's okay.
I also believe he's a big Steelers fan, so we have to hate him this week.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Well, then yeah, don't watch
Not
that,
handsome
actually.
at all. Good for Sofia Vergara getting away. It's a monster.
And then Charlie D'Amelio is on Broadway now, so she's going to be on Fallon too. Yeah.
Oh.
Along with Busta Rhymes. Busta Rhymes on that.
Is she talented? Does she do? Can she sing? Can she?
Apparently enough that she's still on Broadway for now, because I think she's been on there for like a month or two.
Good for her.
And Juliet is what she's in.
So. Oh, I think that's the 90s pop thing. I think that's the one where they do like Backstreet Boys songs and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah. That came to Baltimore, and people were like, "You would like this," and I was like, "I don't think I would." And then they told me that it was like 90s pop songs or something like that. Yeah. Larger Than Life and I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys. Baby One More Time by Britney Spears. Show Me a lot of Backstreet Boys. Yeah, it's 90s pop songs. I probably would be into this. Like I think that I would be into Anne Juliet. That's right up my alley. All right, very good.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yes, that is it. That is it.
All right, very good. Thanks today to Adalius Thomas and to Jeremy Conn. We'll get that up in the greatest hits section of the
Can You Take Me Higher
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Nobody can get drunk tonight. You're not getting out of work tomorrow. We'll be back in studio tomorrow. We'll do the regular. We'll have Patrick Stevens join us for sure.
Jeffrey Chadia heard your slanderous comments, and he said I'm on tomorrow. So
all right, just make sure he knows. I don't want to fight him, but just make sure he knows I disagree. I never want him to think that like he's walking into a trap.
Okay.
Just let him know that I will. He and I are friends. We've been friends for a long time. Jeff's a great guy. Just let him know. I never want him to think that like he's walking into something. So just let him know that I politely disagree. And then I'll tell him, then we'll fight, and stuff and things on the program tomorrow. All right. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including the CIAA tournament, County Sports Zone, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Easy Pass, 1-800-GAMBLER, live casino and hotel, as well as the Costas Inn. Don't forget to continue get me your pats on the ass at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. Somebody's winning a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn. Maryland Sports, the MSAA, Royal Farms, and Crown Trophy. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Monday evening. Go copping as long as they play. Duke sucks.